The story begins in an ordinary high school in Japan. The main character, Hidaka Masamune, sits alone at his desk, scared. Two of his classmates approach him, and one of them, wearing an earring, leans on him, putting his hand on his shoulder. They rudely ask Hidaka to go get them some juice. The young man, holding a notebook in his hands, agrees and asks if they should take seltzer juice. But at that moment, he himself thinks about how he is used every day as an errand boy. The boys throw a few coins into his palm so he can buy them some juice. Hidaka muses that all this is happening simply because he has been cursed with a servant personality. He has already come to terms with the fact that the sky is always gray and gloomy for him. He considers this his daily life. A girl approaches a group of boys who send Hidaka to get juice. She asks them if they are still making fun of Hidekun. The girl with glasses starts shaming the boys, saying that they are already in high school, but they continue to act like hooligans. One of the boys replies that he will just buy them juice and asks what the problem is. The bullies approach the frightened Hidaka from behind, and the boy with the earring says that they are old friends and asks if it is true. While Hidaka remains silent, the other boy answers that it is true, and Kawashi-san was simply mistaken. The girl asks in surprise if it is true, not believing their words. Hidaka agrees with the bully's words, assuring his classmate that she shouldn't worry about him. Kawashi doesn't quite believe his words and decides to check again if everything is okay with him. The boy looks up and looks at her. Then he looks away and says he doesn't understand what she's talking about. He walks out of the classroom, leaving the confused girl behind. Hidaka believes that there are only 4 types of people who engage in bullying, and each has their own role in it. He divides them into observers, helpers, bullies, and victims. He goes out onto the roof and thinks that what they all actually like is that they weren't in the victim's shoes. Hidaka walks to the edge of the roof and puts his hands on the railing. He thinks it's broken. He climbs over the railing and, standing at the very edge, says out loud that it is not really him who is broken, and this world is broken. Hidaka says goodbye. He intends to end his life once and for all. During his fall, he thinks that it was not necessary to take his own life. But he was not able to continue to exist in this way. Introducing his classmates, he thinks that they most likely won't even notice that he's not there. Hidaka falls and it is announced that Hidaka Masamune has died. The young man opens his eyes and looks at what is happening in amazement. He stands in the middle of a huge hall opposite a throne on which a man sits majestically. On both sides of him stand people who joyfully inform His Majesty that they have succeeded and that they have finally managed to do something. Hidaka wonders if he is alive and where he is. The man sitting on the throne greets the heroes. He expresses his joy that they have finally arrived to them. Hidaka doesn't understand what heroes he's talking about or what the man means when he says this. Hidaka notices that his entire class is standing behind him. The man says that his name is Johannes Greyberg, and he is the 47th king of the state of Greyberg. And he is the 47th king of the state of Greyberg. Hidaka turns around and wonders to himself why the entire class was moved here. The king expresses regret for having to call them all so suddenly. The young man catches the gaze of the boy who treated him badly and, frightened by him, turns away. His Majesty tells that the kingdom of Greyberg has been fighting magical entities for many years, but they still do not know when this war will end. And because of this, they decided to call heroes to help them in this hopeless situation. The king says that the message says that the heroes who are summoned will have high stats and skills. He is about to continue his speech, but someone interrupts him with a loud shout, demanding that he stop his story. The boy who mocked Hidaka declares that he will do nothing. He rudely asks what characteristics he is talking about. He then turns to the king and asks if he realizes that he has kidnapped them all. Right next to the young man's feet, a small explosion occurs, which does not affect or injure the guy in any way, but frightens him greatly. The king, with his hand outstretched in front of him and smoke coming from it, announces that he has used magic. He apologizes for acting so suddenly. The whole class was very scared by the explosion, and King Greybird justified himself by saying that it is quite difficult to explain it to people who do not believe in magic. Hidaka begins to suspect that this is another world. The king continues his apology and says that it is more effective to show the magic visually. The young man who argued with the king is very angry at his action. Another classmate with a mole under his eye calls him by his name, Sai, and he turns around and asks in a sharp tone why he called him. He replies that they are surrounded by an armed guard of warriors, so it is better not to start a fight with the king. He offers to listen to them, since no one understands what is happening at the moment. The two girls express their agreement with their classmates' words and ask Sai to keep quiet for a bit. Sai agrees with extreme displeasure. The king says that they can relax, as they have no intention of killing the heroes they spent so much effort summoning. He adds that it was extremely difficult to summon them. Sai exclaims that they are all just high school students. His Majesty replies that after their summoning, each of them received a unique power and profession, and those who receive the title of hero are especially talented. The girl with long hair says that they will understand everything if they say the word status. Sai says, and his stat panel appears. There he reads that his full name is Saki Keita. He is a level 1 sage, and his title is hero, and his magic skill is Fire Hammer. The girl is surprised. She tells the king that there is great news. This boy is a sage. She adds that a sage is the highest class of knight, and he also has a sacred attribute. The girl turns to the king and says that she never ceases to be amazed by what is happening. Hidako turns around in confusion. Someone shouts that the boy is a hero. The king and the knights are surprised to hear these words. The girl tells the boy with the mole that his stats are unmatched. The panel says that his name is Ichijo Yakimura, and he's a level 1 hero with many strong magic skills, and also has a hero sword. Hidako is horrified. He thinks this is all some kind of madness. He thinks to himself that all these people were happy initially, and now they have the opportunity to be happy even in another world. He thinks that something is happening too, and quietly, almost in a whisper, says the word status. On the panel, he sees that his profession is healer. His title is reincarnated, and his stats are quite low compared to others. Hidako looks at the panel, sees his title, profession, and gets angry. He asks with hatred if this is his blessing. Nervously, Hidako asks the girl to tell him something. She politely asks him what exactly he wants to know. The girl smiles affably, but when he asks what a healer does, her face instantly changes. She replies that healers are a profession that specializes in healing, adding that it is the weakest class. Hidako feels a strong sense of disappointment, not believing what he heard, that he is the weakest. Seiki approaches him and asks if he heard that. He loudly says that Hidako is the weakest and wonders why he even came here. The girl with glasses calls him, calling him Saki-kun, and angrily wants to say something, but he immediately interrupts her. Saki says that she can't refute the fact that he is the most useless one here. Ichijo turns to Saki and tells him that he has gone too far this time. He asks if he thinks he was too rude to Hidako. The boy cheekily asks if he is telling him this. A short, elderly man approached Hidako and asked if he could ask why his title was the only one that said he was reincarnated. The whole class turned around, waiting for an answer. Hidako reluctantly begins to answer. At this time, the girl looks at him with contempt in her eyes. Hidako, looking away, admits that he jumped from the roof. The old man replies that he understands him. The girl invites everyone to talk about their future. She says that the first thing they will do is enroll in a special school. She says that they will focus on training their powers so that they can fight against magical entities. The girl asks everyone to stand in a circle so she can teleport them to the student dorm. Hidako, turning away from everyone, thinks that he couldn't go on like this any longer, and that's why he ended his life. Seiki says that Hidako is still useless, even after everything that happened to them, although being a healer is better than being unemployed. Hidako continues to reflect and thinks that even so, he is still in his cruel everyday life. Seiki says that no one will remember him anyway. Hidako thinks to himself that even in another world, things work out the same way. Hidako thinks that even in this world, he still treats him badly. When Saki is about to leave, he wonders if it's really that funny. He turns around and asks again. He approaches Hidako and asks what he just said. Hidako replies that it doesn't matter, and that he is already sick of Saki, who grabs him by the collar. Hidako declares that he is not going anywhere. The girl asks again in surprise. The girl asks if this is true. She says that when she found out he was a healer, she thought about taking him to a different place from his classmates. He's surprised to hear about another place. She says that the teleportation point is chosen randomly, so they would not be able to predict exactly where he would go. She explains that they call it a security system, and they can always count on its support. Hidako thanks for the security system, but she replies that he misunderstood her words. The girl says that this system is intended only for them, and it will help only them. She shouts loudly that this magical instrument is intended specifically to save their people. She's angry that they used him to summon powerful heroes, but instead summoned him, a useless healer. She furiously asks how they can trust the safety of their people to someone like him. Seiki comes up behind him and asks if he can see that he's still a pathetic person even after all this. The girl screams that he has committed an unforgivable sin by wasting their strength and hope, and that he will pay for it with his life. Hidaka is angry and wonders why it is always him. He furiously declares that he will destroy them and this whole country. He promises that he will destroy everything, that not even a speck of dust will remain. Seiki looks on with disdain and the others with surprise as Hidaka screams with hatred that he will kill every single one of them, absolutely all of them. He walks alone, in pitch darkness, and asks himself how long he has been wandering and where he is now. He calls up his stat panel with the word status and looks at it, calling himself weak. Then he notices that he has a status that says that he has an obsession with another world, and this disorder is caused by longing for another world. Hidaka grins and asks if that means he's sick. Hidaka finds 3 chests and begins to suspect that it may be a mimic. He reflects on how long he has been walking and is frustrated by the fact that all he has been able to do is find a torch and get to this dark room with chests. He opens the first chest and it turns out to be completely empty. He says he will check the other one and opens it, seeing something there. He realizes it is a small bottle with liquid inside. He picks it up and assumes that this small bottle might contain some kind of magic potion. Suddenly he hears a loud voice telling him to drink this. He turns around in fear and asks who is there. He is told from the darkness that if he desires killing power, then he should drink it. Hidaka asks what he is talking about, and is told to simply drink the contents. He looks at the bottle and wonders if this whole story is a hallucination. He remembers the girl and Seichi calling him useless. He squeezes the potion in his hand and thinks that if he drinks it, he can get the power he wants. He reflects that he has thought more than once that if he were to end up in another world, he would want to start life from scratch. He opens the potion and drinks it, thinking that he still has a chance in this world. He decides to try it and drinks the contents completely. The bottle falls to the floor and breaks into small pieces. He believes that surviving in a deadly labyrinth is an incredible miracle. And in any case, betting on a mysterious bottle is better than just saying goodbye to your life. The action takes place in the National Academies of the Kingdom of Ares, in the Kingdom of Greyberg. The students walk through the student dormitory and talk to each other. Someone mentions that they think Eri-san is very cute. The girl with glasses is confused and asks if they saw her ugly face. Saki replies that beautiful flowers usually have thorns. Ichido says that those aren't thorns, and that she did have killing intent. He asks if they'll see Hidaka again. He asks Saki if he really likes it. Saki asks him again, and Ichijo tells him not to pretend, and it's about Hidaka. Seiki disdainfully notes that Ichijo is being too kind to him, and tells him to stop it, as he is tired of this talk. Kawashi suddenly decides to mention Kita. She says that she has been silent for a long time, but Sachi and Kita have always treated Hidaka badly. The boys deny Kawashi's words. They say they did none of that. Seiki tells them not to touch Kita and that there is nothing they can do to help. He claims that even if they blame them, Hidaka will never come back. Seiki assumes that he is already dead by now. Meanwhile, Hidaka lies unconscious in a dark room with chests. He wakes up and realizes that he most likely fainted. He says that, despite the severe pain, he does not feel any changes in himself. He wonders if it was always so bright or if it was the effect of the liquid he drank. He throws down the torch and says that the price for it was the unbearable pain he is experiencing at this moment. He notices that there is still one chest left unopened by him, and as he opens it, he wonders what the result will be this time. However, suddenly this chest turns into a huge monster with large, sharp teeth and attacks Hidaka. The young man does not have time to escape and the monster seriously wounds him. Hidaka screams loudly from the incredible pain he is experiencing at this moment. The monster has bitten off part of his arm. The creature is standing in front of him and is about to attack him again. Hidaka runs away screaming, and the monster doesn't follow him, but turns back into a normal chest. Hidaka, hiding somewhere, tries with all his might to heal his wounded arm. He swears, because he guessed that it was a mimic. His health has dropped to 42 out of 60, and his mana to 38 out of 50. He says that healing doesn't work and calls himself the weakest class. He begins to realize that he cannot defeat such a monster, but his hand begins to heal. Hidaka looks at the panel, where it is written that he has obtained a unique skill called Goddess's Blessing, Divine Vengeance. This skill was obtained by using the secret medicine of the god of vengeance and includes the skill Reverse Pole. Hidaka wonders if that thing is the secret cure. He reads on the panel that the reverse effect can arbitrarily set the status of any object and can be cancelled. But when the status is cancelled, the polarity sign immediately changes to the opposite. Hidaka wonders if this is all because of the use of healing. An announcement is made that the launch of Divine Vengeance activates Prose Pole, but healing is replaced by Erosion Wave. Hidaka is indignant about why so loudly and does not understand what erosion means. The panel says that the erosion wave is a spherical wave with an erosive effect that radiates around the user and takes away the life of whoever it touches. And the range of the effect can be expanded by distributing the magic power. Hidaka sits and reads his panel, wondering if healing really turned into the saving erosion wave. He thinks that he might be able to defeat this monster, and he returns back to the chest. He understands that the chest is in the same place and it will not move until someone tries to open it. His hands are still shaking, although he has returned his left hand to a functional position. He is worried and hopes that he will die. He uses Erosion Wave, and it moves towards the monster. Hidaka defeats the monster with his new skill. There is a small explosion, and he notes that this is how reverse works. He shouts joyfully that he has won. It turns out that the notification that Blessing of the Goddess is activated, and he is offered to choose loot. Hidaka is confused about Goddess's blessing since he didn't use it. He wonders if he can get his loot. On the panel, he reads about the new skill, Mimicry, which allows you to change your appearance. It also says about the skill Royal Arc, which is a space designed for storage, and the potion Lesser Restoration. He believes that the Royal Arc will definitely be useful to him too, and thinks that for a simple box, there was a lot of useful stuff in it. An announcement is made that the Mimic was level 500 and was a Guardian. Hidaka is surprised that the monster was so strong. The level up notifications are coming in huge numbers. The notifications keep coming and he wonders how long this will go on. One of the notifications says that the level of healing has been increased due to the increase in the user's level. Hidaka is surprised that magic has levels too. His healing skill has increased. Notifications are coming in huge numbers, which is extremely annoying for Hidaka. Hidaka looks at his stat panel and is surprised by his stats. His level, skills, and abilities have increased significantly. The young man, reading the panel, says that since he does not know the standards of this world, he cannot be sure that with such a level he can call himself strong. He thinks about his classmates and fears that they may all be much stronger than him. The young man, looking into the dark corridor, decides that it is time for him to continue on his way. Walking along it, he finds himself near a mysterious, large gate. He assumes that an event awaits him behind these gates, and without thinking, he tries to open them. However, he can't open the doors on his own, and he wonders how he can get in. An idea suddenly comes to his mind about how to do it. He decides to use his magic skill, Erosion Wave, and makes a big round hole in the gate. He concludes that it is not necessary to do everything honestly. Hidaka, entering the spacious hall, is surprised. He sees a levitating staff in front of him. Overjoyed, he runs to the staff and says that he's been waiting for so long to finally receive some equipment. He runs up, but when he tries to grab the staff, a strong earthquake suddenly starts. He is confused. The only thing he can understand now is that the room is shaking violently. Hidaka hears a loud bang from above. He looks up and sees that the ceiling is given a huge crack and continues to break. The ceiling finally collapses, and something falls to the floor with a loud crash, causing Hidaka to feel genuine horror. A giant in knight's armor appears right in front of the young man and swings his huge sword at him. Hidaka does not believe that this could be the guardian of that staff. The sword almost touches him, but at the last moment, Hidaka manages to dodge. The guard hits the floor with his sword with such force that it shatters into pieces, which fly at Hidaka. The young man understands that the guard is too strong, but he thinks that he can defeat him, since his physical resistance has increased significantly. Hidaka uses his protective aura and sees that the giant has slammed his sword into the floor with such force that he can't pull it out. The young man realizes that this is his chance to defeat the enemy and attacks with magic. He hits the guard and wounds him badly. The knight falls to his knees from the wound he received. The young man thinks that he's already defeated his opponent. He is surprised and glad that it was much easier than he thought. But the guard rises to his feet and suddenly hits Hidaka with such force that he flies back to the wall, causing it to crack. The knight stood up, and the young man wondered why. He thought he had already defeated him. Hidaka begins to heal himself and reflects that if he had not used the protective aura, things could have turned out much worse. He realizes that he has become overconfident after leveling up, even though he is only a healer. Thinking about what to do, he decides that it is time to show his full power. He attacks the enemy with all his remaining strength, and his attack is much stronger than last time. His blow strikes the knight dead. Hidaka realizes that this is the end, and the guardian instantly evaporates. A notification comes about receiving a new item, namely the Elder Knight's sword and skill upgrades, where it says that Mimic Style allows you to hide your status at a higher level. Hidaka is surprised that it can work like this. The young man looks at the panel and realizes that he is already level 212. He says that despite his level, his magic level is the lowest, level 5. He remembers the girl who contemptuously called him the weakest class and denies her words in his head, thinking that they will see that it is not true at all. The notice says that he has received a new magic item, Holy Wrath, with the holy attribute, Holy Light. Hidaka holds it in his hands and examines it carefully. He reads in the notification that it is a magic item and is happy. He is sure that he will definitely need it someday. The action takes place in the National Academy of the Kingdom of Ares, Training Ground Number 1. The exhausted boy falls to the floor. The teacher asks how he is feeling, and the boy replies that he is fine. The teacher says that his magic circle is unstable and requires concentration. Teacher Philip Butler claims that the boy's explosion magic is very strong, so much so that it is very difficult to control, but he must learn to use it without the help of chanting or a magic circle. Philip adds that if he cannot do this, he will not be able to defeat even the most ordinary demon. He tells the boy that it is his duty to be a hero, and the boy agrees. Sitting under a tree, Saki and his comrade watch the scene unfolding intently. Saki, upset, claims that they lack magical power. His interlocutor, not having heard, asks again, and the young man repeats, asking what good their magic is. Then, Saki says that in the end, only one boy out of all of them can use his magic. His friend replies that he now understands why he thinks about that boy. He tells Saki that they are just decorations, and being a hero and being called one are two different concepts, and nothing can be done about it. Saki is extremely disappointed by this fact, but agrees with his friend's words. Hidaka is drinking something heavily. He walks down the hallway with a bottle in his hands and says that, although it was his first time drinking sake, he thought the sake was absolutely excellent. He considers himself very lucky because he came across a food warehouse, so the food problem is solved for now. He sees a big door and thinks about going in. He opens the door, looks inside, and hears someone say that he made it here. A man with pointy ears sits on the throne in front of him and greets Hidaka, calling him an adventurer. Hidaka does not understand what is happening and stands there in amazement. He reflects on where he is and how the atmosphere here feels completely different. A man asks a strange magical creature that resembles a flying eye named Zuri how many years have passed since the last time an adventurer visited him. The creature with one eye, a tail, and bat wings replies that about 150 years have passed. The man thinks and is surprised by the fact that so much time has passed since then. He rises from his throne and exclaims that today is their holiday. He walks towards Hidaka and says that he is Shan, the Snake King, and calls the young man to begin. He approaches Hidaka and offers to fight. At this moment, Hidaka feels something in his stomach. He releases his gaze to look. The Snake King pierced his stomach with a sword and exclaimed that he finally remembered this feeling. He pulls out the sword and, laughing evilly, repeats that for him. This is the most wonderful feeling. The young man thinks that he is unable to breathe, and Shounen insists that he is disappointed that this is the adventurer he has been waiting for 150 years. While Hidaka is in the process of healing himself, the king, leaving, adds that they have become much weaker since then. Shan turns to the youth and asks if he is a priest. Zuri asks for time to look at his characteristics. The magical creature exclaims in surprise that the young man is a healer. The Snake King assures that the healer could not have reached him alone. Zuri says that this is strange. The king does not understand what his creature is talking about and clarifies what exactly. It wants to say something about the young man's skills, but does not have time to finish. Hidaka takes the staff and attacks the creature with holy light. With his blow, he destroys the magical creature and it instantly evaporates. A notification comes that the blessing of the goddess has been activated and you need to collect the loot. The king exclaims that the youth dared and wanted to attack. However, Hidaka manages to get ahead of him and carry out his attack first. He releases a magical attack and thinks he hits the Snake King. So he wonders if this is the end for him. But it turns out that Xian managed to dodge his magical blow. The king yells, asking what kind of magic he uses, and then sees that his sword is chopped off. Hidaka is upset that only his sword was damaged. The king wounds Hidaka and is angry at the young man for killing Zuri, and now wants to deprive him of his sword. Hidaka falls to his knees from the powerful blow, and Xian asks if the young man still thinks that he will be able to leave him alive today. Hidaka heals himself and thinks about how he can't see the Snake King because he's moving too fast. The king looks at the staff and asks if it was he who created the magic that killed his magical creature. He believes that this is the case, but does not understand why there are no signs of use on it. Xian, confused, says that Hidaka is behind the hero. The young man replies that the Flying Eye has already told him that he is a healer. The Snake King wounds Hidaka, not believing his words. He thinks that the boy is hiding his status. The enemy demands Hidaka to tell the truth before he completely slashes him. Hidaka continues to answer that he is a healer. The king, continuing to inflict wounds on him, calls the youth a liar and claims that Hidaka could have killed him too. And this is precisely why Zuri was so wary after seeing his characteristics. Hidaka lies wounded and powerless on the floor. He cannot get up and understands that recovery never comes. Xian shouts that he is definitely hiding something, since a healer cannot use offensive magic. Hidaka reiterates that he is a healer. The king, in a rage, demands to know his name. The boy doesn't understand why he needs his name. He remembers Saki's words that Nito would suit him better, since it's better than being a healer. Hidaka manages to get back on his feet despite his multiple injuries and decides to answer that his name is Nito. He thinks about the fact that his name will now be Nito. He wants to spread this name and take revenge under this pseudonym, because he believes that being killed by Nito is an incredibly great humiliation. The king mockingly asks if he said Nito, and the boy shouts back that he is Nito and not Nito. Nito angrily shouts if he has any hearing problems. Xian laughingly asks what kind of hero the young man is. Nito shouts in irritation that he has already said several times that he is a healer. The king looks at him and says, disappointed, that this is too boring. He attacks, making multiple deep cuts on the boy's body. Nito falls to the floor in death, and the Snake King stands over him, saying that the moment of his end has come. The enemy swings his weapon, ready to take Nito's life. The young man thinks about how he will just die like this, without having accomplished anything in his life. At the last moment, he manages to attack with a wave of erosion, which stops the sword and attacks the king. He, not expecting it, gets hit by such a powerful blow. The defeated enemy is amazed that the boy still has mana to use magic. He says that in these 150 years, no one except Nito has been able to defeat him. Nito replies that the king was good at fighting. Xian laughs at the boy's decision to judge his fighting ability, sarcastically calling it generosity. The Snake King advises him to hide his true identity, but Nito does not understand why he needs to do this. Xian says that even he, the Snake King who lived for hundreds of years and was famous throughout the continent in the past, lost to him so easily. Lying on his deathbed, he asks Nito again if he is really a healer. But when he doesn't get an answer, he says that he now believes his words. The king says that the great unknown magic of the elementary class will attract others, and everyone will want to get it for themselves. He claims that this world rejects things it cannot understand, and the weak classes must remain weak, so it is better for the youth to hide his strength from prying eyes. Nito asks the king for permission to ask a question, and Xian asks him what exactly the young man wants to know. Nito tries to find out from him if he knows any information about the god of vengeance. Xian remembers a man who mentioned this. The man in the memories, addressing him, says that he decided something for himself. The Snake King is silent until the young man calls out to him, calling him uncle. He thinks about what it means, how it all happened. He laughs, saying that he felt nostalgic when he heard that name. Nito happily asks if that means the king knows something about him. Xian replies that although it was a long time ago, he still remembers that this nickname belongs to one adventurer. Nito does not know who adventurers are, and the Snake King says that if Nito travels, he will understand everything himself. The young man is completely sure that the king knows something about this, but Xian ignores his words, saying that he had a lot of fun last time. The Snake King asks Nito's real name, knowing that he made up a pseudonym for himself. The young man decides to give his real name, Masamune Hidaka. Shounen asks again with a smile on his face and wants to say the name of the guy who was before Nito. But he doesn't have time. Nito addresses him and says that his character is different from before. But the Snake King can no longer hear him. He died from his wounds. A notification came about the activation of Blessing of the Goddess. In a request to collect a loot, Nito notices that Shaun's sword is flying. The boy receives the equipment Kurgel's snake sword. Nito wonders if he's supposed to use such a weapon if he is a simple healer. The young man looks at the king and says that he deserves credit. Nito gains the ability Evil Eye of Truth, which allows him to see the target's status. He comes to the conclusion that he got this ability from Zuri's flying eye. From Shounen, he receives the skill Divine Speed, which made him so fast. The young man looks at the defeated enemy and wonders why he still hasn't disappeared. Nito notices a ladder in front of him and decides to check it out, hoping that it will lead him out of this labyrinth. As he climbs the stairs, he comes to the decision that he will definitely get out of this place, no matter how long it takes, and will not die until he takes revenge on all his offenders. Nito learned that magic could easily cure a hangover, so he continued drinking sake. As he climbed the stairs, his thoughts were occupied only with when it would finally end. Suddenly, someone screams, alerting Zeke that there's something behind him. Nito looks around, certain that he heard someone's voice. Nito finds himself right in the middle of a dense forest and feels extremely confused. Looking around, he wonders how he suddenly ended up in this forest, because he is sure that he was simply climbing up the stairs. He feels a strange feeling and assumes that it was teleportation, although he thinks that he did not touch anything or activate anything. Nito is happy that he finally got out of that terrible labyrinth to freedom. He is looking forward to the beginning of his adventures in a new world for him. At that moment, he hears someone calling someone named Alfred. He turns towards the voice and hears someone warning Zeke to be more careful. 3 young men are standing in the forest, and one of the boys shouts at a girl named Elsa that she should watch more carefully. The girl replies that she knows this herself without his instructions. The young man continues to criticize Elsa, claiming that she had no reaction. Nito assumes that these are normal people standing in front of him. They're trying to figure out who Nito is and how he ended up here. The boy with long dark hair says it doesn't matter and suggests that Nito may have overheard their conversation. He draws his sword and advances menacingly towards Nito, telling his friends that he intends to kill him immediately. The boy is convinced that Nito has been following them and approaches with his sword. Nito yells at him to stop and put his weapon away. He makes it clear that he doesn't know what conversation the boy with long hair is talking about. The boy ignores his words and goes on the attack. He swings his sword, but Nito manages to dodge the blow at the last moment. The guy with the sword wants to attack again, but Nito suddenly disappears from the enemy's sight, which causes him extreme amazement. Nito suddenly appears behind the boy, screaming that he won't be able to finish what he started. Nito has a sword in his hands, which he holds right at the neck of their friend, Elsa. The boy with the katana curses, saying that he caught him off guard. Nito asks him not to move. He assures him that he just wants to ask. Nito insists that the boy do as he tells him. First, he asks him and his friend to immediately put their swords back in their sheaths. Elsa tells Zeke that they have already lost. She claims that Nito's movements were so fast that they were indistinguishable, and she could not even sense him approaching. The boy does not let go of his sword and considers his next move. The boy realizes that they are now at a losing position. He lets go of the sword, declares that they surrender, and asks to let his girlfriend go. Nito has a strange, familiar feeling. He does not believe the young man and suspects that this is a common trick. Zeke replies that he even took his hands off the sword, but Nito still continues to doubt the truth of his intention. The guy continues to assure him that it is true, and Nito thinks about it. Eventually, Nito lets the frightened girl go. The girl thanks Nito, and he says that he will then move on. As Nito is about to leave, Zeke suddenly asks him to stop for a minute. Nito turns around and angrily asks if they still want to kill him. The guy introduces himself, but Nito rudely replies that he is not interested. Zeke replies that he has one request for Nito. The boy wants to ask Nito for help. Nito is surprised by this request, and a nervous laugh escapes from him. The boy doesn't have time to answer when Elsa shouts at Zeke, demanding that he not drag Nito into this. Nito thinks that it's too much of a hassle for him anyway, so he doesn't plan on helping them. Finally, he advises them not to hit other people anymore, because it is bad, and waving his hand at them, he begins to leave. Nito doesn't get far before Zeke suddenly uses fire magic. Several large fireballs form in the air and fly straight at Nito. He dodges the attack, disbelieving what is happening, and asks Zeke what he is doing. The boy uses a fire hammer, and a large fire attack builds up in the air above him. The boy says that he will act coolly. Zeke continues to persistently ask for help during the attack. He assures that they just need a little help from him. Nito thinks that this guy is just a real madman. The young man thinks about Zeke's words and the events that are happening and does not understand how one can hide in such a situation. He decides to take action. Zeke wants to tell the reason for the request for help. He uses the evil eye magic and sees Zeke's stat panel in front of him. It says that his name is Zeke Latour Bach. He is a dragon knight with good stats and many magic and fire skills. Nito honestly admits that he is very jealous of him. He reproaches Zeke for using such powerful magic for no reason. The boy replies that Nito says so simply because he himself has never used it. Zeke continues his attack and yells at Nito not to act like that. Nito recalls that while climbing the stairs, he tried to invert one of the spells, namely Attribute Assignment, the nullification magic. He had already realized that since he didn't yet know the range of its effect and the scale of the spell that it could destroy, it would have to be tested in a real fight first. That was why he had waited so long. Nito says that since there is such a huge difference in levels between them, he thinks that he should try it now. Zack asks Nito what he is talking about, but Nito, choosing not to respond to his words, simply uses nullification magic in response to his magical attack. With the help of magic, Nito manages to stop his magical attack. Zeke does not understand what happened to his magic circle, or what happened at all. He begins to think that Nito is a monster. Nito prepares to attack back and angrily asks them if they were planning on using their dirty trick from the start. Elsa grabs Nito's hand and apologizes for her comrade. She is afraid that he will kill her friend and says that he made a mistake in trying to justify him. The girl screams that what she did was wrong, and she understands it. But she begs Nito not to hurt her friend, promising to do whatever he wants in exchange for his mercy. Nito suddenly remembers unpleasant moments from his past, when Seiki treated him with mockery and hostility. A nervous laugh escapes from his chest. With disappointment in his voice, Nito asks if he now seems like a bad person. He decides to repeat once again that he will not help these people and wants to continue on his way. Suddenly, Zeke makes Nito an offer to become their comrade. Nito turns around and his face expresses surprise and confusion. Zeke says that he realized a long time ago that he is not alone, and that he could change a lot, so now he is looking for strong partners. Nito is stunned by such a confession. According to Zeke, their organization only has 4 active members, and things don't always go as smoothly as they would like. But at the moment, they are in dire need of power. Zeke claims that Nito is a great fit for their team, but the boy wonders what benefits he will receive if he decides to join them. Zeke assures him that they can get him anything he wants, but Nito responds by saying that there is nothing he needs right now. Zeke asks if Nito would refuse even if they could grant him any wish. Elsa demands that Zeke stop his persistent persuasion immediately, but he remains adamant. He admits that he does not have much time left and needs a strong comrade. Zeke holds out his clenched hand and asks Nito to take something. The young man carefully takes the ring in his hands, and Zeke informs him that this is their means of communication. They pour their magical power into it, and this gives them the ability to communicate with each other over a long distance. Zeke suggests that Nito not rush to refuse, but take some time to think about their offer and give an answer only when he is completely sure of it. Zeke explains that they name their organization Dragonheart, and they strive to completely rid this world of the rotten elite for the common good. Nito asks with laughter and irony in his voice if they really took him for a follower of their ideas. According to Zeke, they staged a run into the dupes' territory where they are now, and after them there was not a single soul left there. Nito wonders if they killed everyone there. Based on Zeke's words, he decides it would be best to accept the ring and take it with him. Zeke and Elsa's comrade expresses astonishment. He is surprised when he sees Nito using his spatial storage. Nito asks if this spell is so rare. The boy replies that it is the first time he has seen it in his life. Nito asks about the boy's future plans. Zeke replies that they are currently heading to the kingdom of Greyberg. Zeke mentions that this country summoned heroes a month ago, and they want to begin their own investigation into it. Nito realizes with horror that it has already been a month since he and his entire class were transported to this world. He worries that he has missed many important events during this time. Zeke, Realizing that Nito is worried about something, inquires about his condition. Nito was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't answer the question posed to him. When he came to his senses, he lied and said he was just thinking about going to town. Elsa happily informs them that they are now on their way to Hausen, and that they will arrive at their destination in 3 days on foot. Zeke reminds Nito that he never told them his name. The boy decides that he cannot tell them his real name, since they are heading to Greyberg, and introduces himself by his pseudonym, Nito. But suddenly he remembers the Snake King Shan, who called him Nito. He decides that from now on he will call himself Nito. The young man looks up at the sky and rejoices in his long-awaited freedom. He is walking slowly through the forest, enjoying the moment when he does not have to do anything, and can just walk. Suddenly, he hears a noise from the trees. A pack of wild wolves appears before him, and Nito is delighted by this turn of events. He rejoices, realizing that this is it. After all, this is another world. According to Nito, the situation is starting to get heated, and he just needs to relieve his tension. At first, he wants to check their status with magic, and what he sees shocks him. He sees that they are too low for him. Level 8. He remembers that Zeke had 48, and he thought that this was the norm for this world. He is ready for battle, and says that it is time for him to start collecting loot. Nito hears a shout politely asking him to duck, and someone quickly runs past him towards the wild wolves. This man, in a matter of seconds, defeats the entire pack of hunting wolves at once, without making any special efforts. He warns Nito that they are in a dangerous place for them. The person who so easily defeated the wolves turns out to be a cute girl with short hair. She asks if Nito was injured. The young man replies that he did not receive any wounds, but thinks to himself that this is too much. While the girl proudly announces that Nito's life is no longer in danger, even though the situation was quite dangerous, Nito decides to take a look at her stat panel. He learns that her name is Shara Ikerart. She is a senior knight, and she is level 32. The girl comes close to Nito and notices with confusion that he does not look particularly happy about her words. Nito is frightened by such close contact with Shara. The girl is called loudly from the carriage, calling her Miss Shura, and she gets into it together with Nito. The man sitting there turns out to be a merchant. He smiles amiably and says that he is William Vector and introduces his cabman, named Kess. He adds dryly that he is pleased to meet you. The girl introduces herself as Shara Ekerot and stares at Nito without taking her eyes off her. Under her persistent gaze, Nito calls out his chosen nickname, which Shara called a rather strange name. Nito wonders what is wrong with her. William informs Nito that they are taking goods to Radhausen. He cheerfully tells that he met Miss Shara completely by chance when he was looking for an escort in the capital. Nito sheepishly states that he will probably only get in their way on their journey. But the merchant insists that the more companions they have, the better the journey will be. The man praises the girl with admiration, describing how she sensed something was wrong, and reacted so quickly by jumping out of the carriage that he didn't even have time to realize what was happening. He admitted that up until this point, he had never seen the White Royal Knights in action, although he had heard a lot about them. Shira modestly claims that she did nothing special. Nito wonders who the Royal White Knights are, and William is extremely surprised that the young man knows nothing about them. He tells that the capital of Radhausen is ruled by kings of a family that has been sitting on the throne for several generations, and the current ruling king is Arnold Radhausen. William continues his explanation by saying that the Royal White Knights are a unit that is stationed in the capital under the direct command of the king alone. The man adds that the Royal White Knights only occasionally appear in public places, and otherwise people know almost nothing about them. William addresses Shur, noting that meeting a knight like her in such a place is something akin to a miracle. The girl is embarrassed by these words, trying to deny their truth. Nito also begins to think that he clearly did not expect to meet a white-haired girl. Looking at her, he realizes that she really does look like a heroine from another world. Shira points out that she also knows something about William, but the merchant jokes that he can't even compare to her leg. Shira praises William, saying that you can buy the rarest items from him that you can't find anywhere else. She claims that there is no one in the merchant world who doesn't know his name, and even in the neighboring kingdoms they have heard of him. Based on Shira's words, Nito concludes that William definitely needs to be accompanied on his journey. The merchant only expresses joy that his business is now significantly on the rise. William asks Nito how he ended up in such a place. The young man decides not to go into details, telling the whole truth about himself, and says that he was just thinking about a little adventure. The man assumed that Nito was heading to the guild. Nito thinks that of course there must be a place in this world where people's dreams originate. He tells the merchant that this is where he is headed, and Shara cordially offers to escort Nito to the guild once they arrive in the capital. The girl asks with interest what class Nito belongs to, but the young man is not sure if he can tell them the truth about himself. Nito remembers Cheon's advice to hide his identity and what Zeke said to him. He's lost in doubt, trying to decide what is the best course of action to take now. He considers lying and saying he's a sorcerer or a swordsman, but the thought suddenly makes him feel sick. Shara turns to him again, waiting for him to answer. Nito decides to tell them the truth. He announces that he belongs to the healer class, which surprises William. The man assumes that Nito wants to find a team for himself in the guild. The young man replies that if such an opportunity presented itself, he would be happy with such an outcome of events. Sherry suggests letting her talk to the guild. She thinks that together they can definitely come up with something suitable. The girl enthusiastically states that he will definitely be able to find partners for himself, since even the most experienced adventurers would benefit from a healer. She says with delight that he can become an example for all those people who are completing because of their low class. Nito notices her confidence and promises that he will do everything in his power. As they continue their journey to the capital, Shira casually asks Nito if he would like to learn fencing skills. Shira reminds him that his mana is not used up at all when practicing swordsmanship, as it is not a magical attack. Nito asks in surprise, how can healers use a sword? The girl doesn't understand why Nito thought that because he is a healer, he can't use a sword. She replies that healers can use anything, an axe, a sword, or even a rapier. Nito realizes that the class doesn't have as many restrictions as he previously thought due to the girl's words, who claim that healers only know how to heal and nothing more. Nito decides to check if the healer can use magical attacks such as fireballs or electric shocks. Shira says that it will be too difficult for them to use those types of attacks. She begins to explain that there are some significant differences between a mage and a healer, due to the fact that the very nature of their magic is inherently different from each other. Nito asks about the purpose of attribute assignment, adding that he is still learning and does not know much. Shira replies that attribute assignment is different from magic attribute. The boy asks how exactly they are different from each other. She explains that the fundamental difference is that attribute assignment is a magic that only applies to weapons, and that using attributes like fire or water without magical power is impossible. Nito understood little of this information. Shara adds that it is highly unusual for a healer to use assign attribute, so she again strongly advises him to take up swordsmanship. Nito thinks that this skill will definitely be useful to him in this world. Cherie enthusiastically asks to be sure to let her know if Nito decides to try his hand at fencing. Nito and his companions arrived at a small village called Tanya, and William suggested that they stop there for a while to rest from the long journey. They got off the cart and noticed a crowd of men gathered around someone. They decided to go and find out what happened by asking the locals. An elderly man sitting in the center of this crowd of people noticed the people who had arrived in their village and asked who they were. Nito, Shara, and William introduced themselves and explained that they were on their way to Radhausen and wanted to stay in their village for just a few days. However, the man apologized to them regretfully, stating that the village was not in a position to receive any guests at the moment. The village elder explained that their village had recently been attacked by bandits and all the young girls in the village had been taken away. The crowd of locals began to shout that they could not sit idly by and that it was their duty to rescue the kidnapped girls. That was the very purpose for which they had all gathered here. Shira suggests that these bandits are different from the usual ones, as their attack on the village was strictly planned, and they are probably connected to the illegal goods dealer. She concludes that they have little time left before the girls are taken away. Based on the facts revealed, the girl concludes that local residents need outside help to save the girls. Shira bravely declares that they will go and save the girls for them. The village chief objects, claiming that this is not right since they are guests in their village. However, William replies that they are not yet guests, and the elder can rely on them. The merchant claims that Keese and Shara can easily deal with them, as they are both quite strong. Shara approaches the villagers, asking if they have any information on the location of the bandits' camp. There is a commotion, and suddenly someone from the crowd shouts out that he knows the exact route. A young boy named Jake steps forward. He confidently states that he has been following the bandits since the beginning of their attack, and that while all the adults were out hunting, he followed the bandits and made marks on the trees. He says that after climbing the mountain, he discovered their camp, where he saw his mother and all the other girls sitting behind bars. The elder mentions that Jake's mother is the only family he has. Shara states that they must act without delay before the girls are taken. Jake claims he can lead them to the bandit camp and loudly exclaims that he wants to save them all. The four of them climb the mountain and see a camp belonging to the bandits. Shira insists that the boy return alone back to the village, explaining that he cannot stay with them as the most dangerous part is about to begin. Jake quickly agrees and quietly runs away. Nito, watching the bandits and the kidnapped girls, thinks that what is happening reminds him of a certain game event. Shira quietly whispers to Nito that she will signal him once she and Case have cleared the area, and politely asks him to wait here. Shira tells him that healers do not have offensive magic, and Nito agrees to stay, adding that she should not worry and that he will come to her aid if anything happens. Nito watches the girl go, secretly offended by her words that since he is a healer, he should wait here. He thinks that there is no need for that at his level, but remembers that Shara does not even suspect this. He consoles himself with the fact that he still wants to watch someone like a royal white knight. At this time, in the village, the elder worriedly asks if the four of them can really handle a whole group of bandits. William asks to trust them, saying that Case has also joined them, and Shara is the current royal white knight. The girl expertly pierced one of the bandits and moved on. When Shara gave the signal, Nito came out from under cover and examined several large bandits killed by Shara. He comments on what is happening, admitting that this is exactly what he expected from Shara, because she is the royal white knight. The girl only replies that there were not so many of them. They free the girls, and Shara says it's time to return to the village, assuring them that they are going to escort them to the village, so they feel safe and don't worry. Shara thinks that they are very lucky, because at this time the rest of the bandits went somewhere. However, despite the fact that there is no one nearby, Nito does not leave a bad feeling, and he looks around. Shira urges Nito to go further, but the young man advises her not to lower her guard and to be on guard. At that moment, a voice is heard asking where they are going. The bandits returned to their camp and surrounded Nito, his comrades, and the rescued girls. Shira recognized these bandits and was about to tell about them when one of the bandits interrupted her, cursing that these guys could not be trusted with anything. Nito realizes that the kidnapping of the villagers was just a decoy, while Shira identifies the man as Oliver Joe. He asks in surprise that she knows him. The girl says that he is a former royal knight of Rothhausen, the commander of the capture unit known as the Ash Squad. She tells that 2 years ago, the leader of the squad suddenly killed all his subordinates, and thus ignited the flames of war. Oliver bows slightly and sarcastically thanks them for the introduction, saying that as they can see, he's now become a gangster. Shira doesn't understand why people keep following him. Oliver asks her again. He wonders if people still believe in the royal and knightly oaths they take to their country, adding, "Who needs these rotten things anyway?" Shira exclaims, refuting Oliver's words, saying that the current king of Rathhausen is an incredibly magnanimous man. However, Oliver decides to remind her of the king's order called Absolute. He claims that the killers have the same eyes as Shira, and asks her if she thinks a person who has sworn allegiance to his country should have such eyes. He assumes that Shira will now answer that she is not like that at all. But, without giving her the opportunity to answer, he offers her to sell herself at a higher price. Oliver orders the bandits to kill them all, and the bandits attack immediately without remorse. Shira stands in front of Nito and asks him and the others to move away, trying to protect everyone at once. Shira reacts to the bandits' attack without delay, using the magical attack, Ice Front, and kills several attacking opponents with one blow. Oliver claps his hands and says that this is exactly what you would expect from the White Royal Knight. Shira is upset that he managed to notice her magical attack. Oliver claims that a green fighter like her will never be able to hide anything from him. At this time, while Shira is distracted, one of the bandits notices that no one is covering Nito and decides to take advantage of the moment by attacking him. Suddenly, Keese appears in front of him and easily defeats the enemy with an explosive barrier, killing him. He turns to Shira and asks her to focus her attention on the center. Nito sincerely admires the abilities of Shira and Kes, confident that the attacking bandits are simply not capable of something like that. Shira and Keese quickly and easily defeat their opponents. Oliver, watching the battle, notes that the bandits are very weak and is disappointed by the fact that in all their years as thieves, they have not been able to gain strength. Shira, having finished her fight with the last attacking bandit, suddenly hears someone's familiar voice screaming for help. The woman, seeing Jack in Oliver's arms, wants to run to him, but she is stopped. Jack screams, but the bandit, grabbing him by the hair, tells him to shut up immediately. Shara is confused and asks what Jack is doing here. Oliver replies with a grin that he's just used to doing everything alone. He adds that sending him home alone while in enemy territory was a strategically stupid decision on the part of the king's knight. Shara sternly demands that he let the boy go. Jack lets out a piercing scream, begging Shira to save him, and Oliver angrily repeats for him to shut up immediately. Oliver threatens to pierce Jack's ear or throat since he is being so noisy. He puts a knife to his neck and sarcastically says that he should not accidentally kill him. Shira realizes that she won't be able to save him in time. With tears in her eyes, the woman loudly shouts the boy's name. Suddenly, Nito appears behind Oliver, holding a dagger in his hand. Nito instantly stabs him in the neck with a knife so fast that neither Oliver nor the others even have time to understand how it happened. Oliver dies almost instantly from the wound he received. Jack turns around and asks in surprise how Nito got near him. The boy leaves the question unanswered, seeing that everyone around him is in shock, staring at him. He, feeling nervous, states that it is time for them to return to the village, as the villagers who are waiting for them to return might start to worry about them. Kaze agrees with Nito's words, but Shira grabs him by the shoulder and insists that he explain everything to her first. The young man pretends not to understand what is being discussed and asks what exactly she wants to know from him. Shira turns him around and begins to question him on how he was able to do it. She knows that he is a healer and cannot understand how he managed to stick the knife into Oliver's neck, nor how he managed to move so quickly. She screams and asks if he is hiding something from her. Seeing Shira furious, he realizes that he is now in a difficult situation. Shira remembers the status and demands that he show it to her immediately. Nito, trying to get out of it, suggests returning to the village first. Shira reluctantly agrees, but insistently asks him to explain himself to her as soon as they return to the village. Nito and Kaze are left alone behind, and the young man praises Kaze's magic, calling it amazing. Kaze looks at Nito suspiciously and replies that his magic is definitely not as good as his. Nito thinks about how Kaze looks like he wants to kill him. Nito, watching Shara and the locals, muses that they weren't supposed to see his power. But if he hadn't used it, Jack might be dead by now. He doesn't want to ignore Shaun's advice, but he believes that his decision was correct, because this act can be considered good. The whole village was eagerly awaiting their return, and everyone was incredibly happy when they saw the girls kidnapped by the bandits. Nito stands to the side, watching the touching moment of family reunion, when he notices a girl standing alone near the barn, her face covered by a hood. He asks the girl if she's going to return to her family. However, the girl does not even turn in his direction, continuing to stand silently, which confuses Nito. A woman with short hair asks if the girl is from their village. She says that although they were locked up together, she does not know where she was brought from, because the girl did not talk to anyone or answer any questions. Shara carefully notes that the girl had a very hard time, and assures her that everything is behind her and they will not let anyone hurt her again, and will definitely help her. Shara tells her that she can worry, because tomorrow they will be going to the royal capital. There they can apply to a special institution so that she can be sent back to her hometown. Nito adds that if a girl is not happy with something, she can go wherever she wants. But until they find out where she is from, it will be impossible for them to send her to her hometown. Shira whispers to the boy to express himself more gently, but to the surprise of Nito and Shira, the girl suddenly grabs the hem of his clothes. The offended girl leaves, declaring that she will leave it all to Nito. The young man thinks that he went a bit overboard, but the girl replies that for some reason she just didn't like Shira very much. Nito is surprised that the girl is able to speak and asks why she has not spoken a single word all this time. The girl quietly replies that he is different, but Nito cannot make out what she says. She removes her hood, revealing her face to Nito, and says her name, Todorika. Nito, seeing the girl's face, blushes, feeling some embarrassment. Totorka asks if he's listening to her. Nito responds by confirming that he heard everything. The girl asks him to call her by her abbreviation, Toa. Meanwhile, Sherry watches their conversation from the side with a displeased look. The young man wants to introduce himself as Nito, but suddenly wonders if it is worth doing. He decides for himself that lying is not the best solution, and tells her his real name, Masamune. However, Toa nervously asks him to call him Nito in front of everyone else. and she easily agrees. The boy asks why she was captured, and Toa replies that she doesn't know. She explains that she was hiding in the forest and at some point she was suddenly captured. Nito then tries to find out where her home is, but the girl again says she doesn't know. He concludes that they will have to be patient, and Toa agrees with his words. While loading things into the wagon, Kes asks William what he thinks of the day's events. He responds by asking what kind of things Nito would be able to do if he became a royal knight. Case thinks that this would be something impressive, and remembers that Nito defeated Oliver using only a simple sword fragment and nothing more. However, the problem, in his opinion, lies in the class that Nito belongs to. William wonders if Nito will become violent in the future, finding it ironic that such an adventurer is of a class completely unsuited to him. He suggests that Nito's path will be rocky, but Kes immediately denies this. Case is confident that Nito will never have any problems at all. He believes that the young man is a real monster. William is extremely surprised by his words and says that if Case himself thinks so, then the situation becomes even more interesting than it was before. William smiles as Shara glares at Toa, who is sleeping quietly on Nito's shoulder. The boy reacts with fear, finding Shara's gaze quite creepy. Early in the morning, the five of them left the village of Tanya and continued their journey to Radhausen. Suddenly, Shira remembers that Nito promised to show her his status. She can't believe that a simple healer could defeat such an opponent as Oliver so easily. She hopes that this time she will get a more convincing explanation from him. First, she furiously asks if he really is a simple healer, to which he receives a positive answer. Nito shows William and Sherry the modified stat panel and says that he never even thought of lying to her about his status. He points to the skill Divine Speed and claims that it was thanks to this skill that he was able to get to Oliver so quickly. Shara says she understands and apologizes for her past behavior. Nito reassures her that everything is fine and he is not mad at her. He smiles and thinks to himself that he is very glad that he has such a skill as facial expression style, which is very useful to him at the moment. The carriage pulls up to the huge walls, and William happily announces that they have finally reached Radhausen. Nito thinks that it is as expected from a capital city. The city is simply enormous. They are strolling through the streets of the city when William announces that they will part ways here as he is heading to the royal castle. He tells them to take care of themselves. Nito expresses his sincere gratitude for William's ride to the capital. They bid each other farewell, and the merchant goes his way. Shira suggests going to the guild, as they originally agreed. They reach a large, beautiful building, and when they enter, they see a huge number of people sitting at tables and having a good time. While Nito is surprised that the guild is combined with a tavern, Shira asks him to come to the counter. There, the girl politely asks him to put his hand on the ball in order to find out his status for subsequent registration. He places his hand on the ball and decides to use his mimic style skill, hoping that it will work in this situation as well, as he doesn't want to draw too much attention to himself. The girl behind the counter voices the nickname he chose, letting him know that his skill is working. The ball displays his corrected panel of characteristics. The girl clarifies his belonging to the healer class and accepts the data. Nito is glad that everything worked out perfectly. Shira announces that he has successfully completed the registration and asks what his next steps will be. Nito thinks about it and asks Toa if she would like to go to the government now. He says that they could find out information about her hometown there, but the girl puts it off, saying that she wants to do it later. Nito notices that Toa is somewhat gloomy. The young man decides to ask the girl if she also wants to become an adventurer, and she, without thinking twice, agrees to his proposal. Suddenly, someone comes up to Nito and puts a hand on his shoulder. A drunk, large man with a beard and a mug in his hands asks Nito if he wants to share girls with him and his friends, claiming that he already has two anyway. Nito politely refuses, explaining that these girls are his friends. But at that moment, he thinks in his head that the man is really clinging to him. The man angrily asks if they should just leave because they are supposedly just his friends. He asks if Nito is just a healer and starts to mock him, claiming that he can only eat the group's scraps. And if anything happens, he runs back home to his mommy. The Toa watches the scene with a look of disdain and hears the man state that they are sea crank adventurers, and that they will definitely be able to take care of them properly. Shira decides to intervene in the conversation and demands that the man apologize for what he said. In response, he asks why they need this guy at all, offering to keep them company, assuring them that it will be fun. Suddenly, several young men in knightly uniforms enter the guild. It turns out that they came to the guild in search of Shira. The girl approaches Shira, kneels down, and joyfully exclaims that she has finally found her. She says that she is glad that she has returned safely to the capital. Shira, in turn, turns to a girl named Annette and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. Nito is stunned that he treats Shira with such deep respect. Annette turns to Nito and asks who all these people are. Shira replies that the man is not even worth paying any attention to. She then introduces Nito and the Toa to them, explaining that she met them on her way to the capital and promised to escort them to the guild once they arrived in the city. Nito says that Shira has taken good care of them, and a happy Annette asks if that means it's time for her to return back to the castle. The man starts to get angry and, grabbing Shira by the collar, says that she is clearly brave since she decided to ignore his words. Annette throws him to the floor, twisting his arm and screaming at him for the dare he touched Shira-sama. The man screamed that it hurt. After dealing with him, Annette suggests that Shira leave, while Nito reflects on how easily Annette defeated the Sea Crank adventurer. Standing near the guild, Shira says goodbye, and before finally parting, she asks Tua if she is sure that she does not want to go to the government now. However, Tua replies that everything is fine, and she does not need it now. Shira says that if anything happens, they should say that they know Ikarit, and asks Nito to take care of the Tuea. The young man responds by assuring her that she can rely on him. The boys think about what they will do next. Nito remembers that they have no money at all. Suddenly, a woman approaches them on the street and admires their clothes, calling them very interesting. The woman brings them to her store and is surprised that they are traveling with absolutely no money, saying that in today's world, without money, you can die. She looks at Nito's clothes and notices that they are quite dirty. The woman says that she will still be happy to exchange these clothes for new ones, and will even be able to find something for the girl too. Nito honestly reports that their clothes are in pretty bad shape, but the woman assures them that there's no reason to worry. She explains that the clothes are made of very expensive fabric, and throwing them away would be a terrible indulgence. Nito is surprised by the fact that his clothes are so expensive, because they're just a school uniform. He happily accepts the store owner's offer to exchange them for new clothes. The woman looks for clothes and asks what class Nito belongs to, guessing that he is most likely a warrior or a hunter. The boy replies that he is simply a healer. She is surprised, and Nito says it's a long story. The woman decides not to continue questioning him further. She gives him a small bag, explaining that it is intended so that he can carry all sorts of potions and medicinal herbs. Nito asks if the healer can use herbs, and the seller is surprised that he didn't know this before. The woman explains that since healers are only capable of using very weak healing magic, no one forbids them from using third-party additives to enhance the effect of the spell. The salesman asks about the Toa's class, and Nito wonders if he hasn't seen her status yet or Thaner. The girl replies that she is a paladin, and this causes the woman extreme amazement. Toa shows her stat panel, and Nito asks what a paladin is. The woman says that humans also call them magic swordsmen. She explains that what makes paladins unique is that they can freely use both magic and swords, and even combine the two aspects. She adds that the Toa are a representative of a demonic race, and Nito remembers that the king mentioned his country's endless war with demonic creatures, which is why he summoned heroes from another world. Nito asks what demons are, and the seller, amazed, loudly asks if he knows anything. She replies that she also doesn't know much about the representatives of the demonic race, only that they have a large volume of magical reserves and that this race lives on the side of the Great Forest. She wonders what circumstances brought them together, calling them a strange combination. Nito and Toa change into their new clothes. The woman admires their appearance, claiming that their outfits suit them very well. The shop owner also gives Toa a sword, and Nito thanks her for all these things. However, the woman insists that all these things still cost less than their previous clothes. She gives the rest of the money, and wants to give Nito one piece of advice. She says that although everything will be fine in this country, they should not build unnecessary illusions, because demons are not welcome everywhere, and Toa will stand out from the crowd due to their high magical power. She argues that if he is a real man, he should not let anyone hurt the Toa. Nito looks at Toa and reflects that even in this world, discrimination exists, simply because people cannot accept what they cannot understand. He replies that he will definitely take care of this. The woman sees Nito and Toa off and says that her name is Sharon and that they can come see her at any time. They are sitting in the city, and Nito, looking at her, talks about how he would never have thought that he would meet someone like her. He realized that her level was significantly higher than that of the adventurers from the guild, since they were level 10 to 17 or level 23 at most. But he decides that he is more interested in something else. He asks if Toa has anything to ask about his status or if she wants to see him. The girl indifferently replies that she has already seen his status. Nito remembers this and asks her what she thinks of his status. She replies that she finds it interesting. She adds that his status is abnormal, and there is no other way to describe it. Nito is upset by the fact that he is abnormal even from a demon's point of view. Nito wonders how someone as strong as her was so easily caught by ordinary, weak bandits when she could easily handle them herself. The girl shyly replies that she was just scared. Her words surprise Nito. He asks where she was before she ended up in that forest. The girl calmly replies that she was in her castle, and this shocks him. The boy tries to guess who she is, assuming that she is a princess or someone very important in the demon world. He asks what she was doing in the castle, to which she receives a short answer that nothing special. Toa explains that she trained with magic and a sword in the morning, and then waited with her parents until nightfall for her sister to return. While waiting, she often played with the chest or talked to the pixies in the garden. Nito, judging by her words, concludes that she never left the confines of her castle, since she was forbidden to go outside. He realizes that she was simply too scared of the outside world and the people she met, just like him, who was also new to this world. After a while, a bright light magic was heard in the thick of the forest. Meanwhile, Nito attacked the little green goblin in hand-to-hand combat. After a while, Nito and Toa appeared at the edge of the forest, and several dead demons were lying next to them. Nito said that this should be enough to pay for the inn. The girl took the teeth out of the goblin's jaw and collected them in a bag. Nito asked the Toa if it was true that after killing a monster, its corpse would remain corporeal and decompose. He said that he thought that after death, corpses would disappear from this world. The girl replied that this only happens in the dungeons, and outside of it, the corpses of monsters do not disappear and remain on the ground. And besides, goblins are monsters, not mammon. Nito asked if there is a difference between mammon and goblins. Toa explained that mammons have intelligence and can speak the language of people, while monsters are completely different creatures. Nito remembers the servant of the servant lord and understands that then he was not a monster, but a mammon, because he could freely speak the human language. After some time, Nito and Toa returned to the Adventurers Guild to complete the task. The girl at the front desk said that she was confirming the quest to eliminate 10 goblins and then handed Nito a reward. The young man notices the Toa standing next to him yawning awkwardly. He tells her, turning around, that it was quite tiring, so they should find an inn to rest. The girl at the front desk places a city map in front of Nito and Toa and says that if the couple is looking for a hotel, she can show them a few places. Nito thanks her for her help. Suddenly, someone approaches Toa and calls her a young lady. It was a man in a very fancy dress. He put his hand on his chest and bowed, and then asked if he could know her name. Nito stood between them, apologized, and said that the girl was traveling with him. The man looked at the boy angrily. He said he had never seen him there before, and then asked if he was an adventurer. Nito said he was an adventurer, and had only just started doing so today. The man strokes his hair, and is surprised by the information that the young man in front of him is a newbie, so it is not surprising that he does not know him. He raises his head haughtily and asks Nito if they really started their careers by killing some lowly goblins. Nito wondered if each of these individuals really loved to eavesdrop. Nito scratches his head and says that it is absolutely right, because it is hard to be an adventurer. The man asks why the young man justifies himself like that, because low-ranking missions will not give them much money. Nito sighs. Because this man is so persistent, he says that it is nothing, and that the man should not worry about it. The man snaps and says that he was not talking to him, but to the lady next to him, and that the young man should shut up. He continues by saying that if Toa goes with him, then not only goblins, but wolves, giant snakes, and even perhaps grizzlies will not be a problem for him. He also says that he was there when Nito and Toa got into an argument with a man at noon. He says that Nito is a healer, and then asks if he is right. He clarifies that Nito's journey seemed to have ended before it even began, so he is sure that the young man is going to stay at some cheap hotel. He then places his hand on Toa's shoulder and asks if the girl will go with him, because he can give her much more, and he thinks he can satisfy her much more than this guy. Nito frowns and thinks that there is definitely a hidden meaning to this man's words, but there is no need to worry about it. He tells Toa that they need to go, but the girl does not react to his words. Suddenly, she summons light magic and directs it straight at that vile man. After a while, he was struck unconscious. All his clothes were scorched and his hair stood on end. Everyone around looked at what was happening in surprise. She looked at him with disgust. The young man calls the girl, and she suddenly turns to him. She takes his hand and tells him to follow her. Meanwhile, the man lies unconscious on the floor. The girl walked very quickly through the narrow streets of the city, and Nito tried to keep up with her, asking her to stop for at least a second. Suddenly the girl stopped. She asked why Nito didn't say anything to that man, because he could have answered him, because he was strong. Nito asked why he did that, and then replied that it was because he knew that the man was not someone to worry about, which is why Nito ignored him and avoided the unnecessary situation. He also says that unpleasant situations should be avoided whenever possible. Tua clutched the hem of her skirt and turned around and said that there was no point in Nito thinking about such things. She continued shouting that the boy wasn't hurt by the man's words since he laughed at the boy. Tua awkwardly said that it was unpleasant. Nito looked down and thought that he was really hurt and really angry, but being so direct in this matter was not good. However, Toa used her magic for him, even though they had just met and they barely even knew each other. He apologized to the girl and thought to himself that revenge is not everything. This thought flashed through his head at that moment. He then thanked the girl for getting angry at him. Nito said that next time he would try to get angry, but healers were not supposed to be strong, so he would try to avoid such scenes and solve everything with words. Toa said, wiping away tears, that she understood everything. Having calmed down, the girl said that this was why he would be angry for Masamune. Nito tried to understand if the girl understood anything from what they had just talked about. It seems that somehow he was able to mystically establish connections in this world, and after his revenge, Nito will have a completely new life. He changes the way he thinks. For himself and for the Toa, he can feel saved for the first time. Sometime later, already at night, Nito and Toa were sitting in one of the local establishments. On the table they had a plate of meat, hot soup, and salad. Different conversations were heard from different corners. Someone said that the meat was very tasty and someone talked about monsters. Nito and Toa also talked over food. Nito asked the girl that she had probably already tried all these dishes, but Toa replied that Nito was mistaken and the girl had never eaten anything like that. Nito was surprised and asked what the girl ate in the castle. Toa replied that he did not remember it because she ate what was prepared for her. Her mother told her that it was food that increased the level of the girl's magical abilities. Nito thought that the more he learned about her, the more curious he became. He realized that he would need to visit the demon country, and Todoriki's home was somewhere in the steppes. The girl enjoys the food and says that this food will definitely make her stronger than the food she ate before. She will have to try hard to taste this delicious meat again. Nito said that he was very glad that the girl liked the food. He asks her how about another task for tomorrow. Maybe the reward will be bigger. The girl said that she is not against it and is all for it. Some time after dinner, Toa was taking a bath. Coming out of the bathroom, Nito, who was waiting for her, said that they were very lucky to be able to afford a room in such a popular hotel. Toa agreed with these words. Nito moves the table and says that he will sleep on the floor and let Toa sleep on the bed. But the girl asks why not just sleep on the opposite side. Nito is surprised by this. The girl went to lie down on the bed and told Nito to come here too, because he might catch a cold if he slept on the floor. The young man began to stutter and awkwardly said that he tossed and turned a lot in his sleep. The girl fluffs her pillow and says that she doesn't care because she trusts Masamune. The boy asks what she means by trusting him. The girl is already covering herself with a blanket, and then looks at Nito, who is standing in place, and asks if he really won't sleep. But the young man says that he will. Toa had already gotten under the covers and wished Nito good night. The young man, stuttering, did the same. It was already deep night. Nito realized that he could not sleep. Toa turned to him and asked if he was sleeping. Nito said that he was not sleeping and had just woken up. Toa continued speaking, saying that she was always alone in that castle. Her parents only came home at night, and her sister never returned home. The only people she could communicate with were the pixies. Every day was lonely, but now loneliness is in the past, because Nito is next to her. The girl turns to Nito's back and hugs him. She wishes him good night. The young man calms down and, wishing the same to Toa, also falls asleep. The next morning, someone knocked on Nito's room. He comes out sleepy and asks Shira what she needs this morning. The girl says it's midday. Nito asks how she found him. Shira says that she was told about it at the guild. The girl thought that she wanted to teach the boy fencing. Toa's voice was heard from the room and asked what happened. He turns to say that Shira has arrived, but before he can finish speaking, he sees the Toa's form when she is wearing revealing clothing. He started to smear his hands and asked why the girl was dressed like that, but she said it was hot at night. Meanwhile, Shira was very angry and gave Nito a scolding. The entire hotel was in an uproar. Toa asked what Masamune was doing. The young man tried to explain to Shira that it was a simple misunderstanding. The girl summoned the light, but Nito tried to stop her. Shira said that she was very sorry, but she had jumped to conclusions earlier. To solve problems by force, what is wrong with the knights of this country? So she asks for forgiveness. Nito asks Toa to stop, because no matter how much they beat him, he won't get any more. Shira asks what Nito means. The girl then said that earlier she heard Toa call Nito Masamune. The girl shuddered in surprise. The boy said that Nito was a pseudonym, but then he asked to be called Nita in public. Shira agreed. Nito thought that Toa might accidentally say his real name, so he would have to ask her to be more careful and watch herself in society. Shira says that Masamune is a very unusual name. She says that this is not his Gikoku name. Nito asks again what it is. The girl says that rumor has it that this country can be found on the opposite side of the Vanam continent. She has heard that people in this country use similar names to Nito. The boy realizes that he will have to visit there. Then the girl asked if the young man had anything planned for today, because she was thinking of teaching him fencing today. The young man said that he wanted to take the quest from the guild because he needed money. The girl asks if she can go with Nito and Toa. She says that she can help, and if they take her with them, they will be allowed to take on a more difficult task, and the reward will actually be greater. Nito says that if the girl wants, she can join. Shira tells them to move faster. After some time, in the Adventurers Guild, Shira explained that there is a gradation for adventurers, based on their achievements. The lowest class is F class, and the highest is SSS. Right now, Nito and Toa can only take E-rank missions, but if they are accompanied by Shira, they will be able to take A-rank requests, or even higher. Nito asked if Shira was also an adventurer. The girl replied that the knights of this country were all adventurers, and in any case, every knight in the country must register with the Adventurers Guild, so all knights in this country are adventurers. Nito asks if it is normal for Shira to show up at the guild 2 days a week, since the king's white knights are supposed to be hidden from society. Shira replies that it is, but few people know of her true identity. She is a knight, but at the same time also an adventurer. The group approaches the bulletin board, and Shira asks what task Nito and Toa want to take. The board is filled with all the tasks for Nito, as if handpicked. Nito looks at the board and thinks that even though Shira says so, nothing will change the fact that he can't read anything. Even that task of exterminating goblins was given to them by the receptionist girl. He looks at a picture of some monster and asks what kind of beast it is. Shira says his name is Klein. He is a huge beast with 2 horns that lives in the forest. He decides to take the quest. Shira says that after completing the quest, she wants to go to the shop across the street for a while. After completing the checkout, Shira, Nito, and Toa enter the store. The girl working there recognizes the customer in Shira's face and asks if it's really her day off. Then Nito comes in. He hears Shira talking about how they are going to the forest to get Klein now, so she thought she should stock up on medicine from Catherine. The young man asks what the girl is talking about, to which Shira replies that the medication is a medicine that protects his hearing, because Klein's voice can paralyze the body, so such a thing is necessary. Suddenly, the shop assistant comes to the group and says that she looked closely and remembered Nito, and along with him, the paladin girl. Shira was very surprised and then screamed that Toa is really a paladin. The female saleswoman realized that she had screwed up. After a while, they all stood at the entrance to the forest. Shira once again says that Toa is a paladin. Nito asks why the girl is so interested in this. Nito really knew that there was only one other person in the kingdom with that class. Even for the Royal White Knights, that class is extremely rare. And the fact that a Toa had that class surprised her. Nito asks if it's okay that Shira is telling him all this information so calmly. Nito realizes that revealing his real name to this girl was a mistake. After some time, they found themselves deep in the forest. They saw groups of people who were badly maimed. Shira asks if they are okay. Looking at them, she asks what happened to these people. One man says they went into the forest to look for orcs. At first, everything was fine. It was the same forest. But suddenly, the goblins, orcs, and wolves ran away from here as if something had frightened them. He said that they had to return it then, because it was Klein. His group saw him, but he was strange. Nito asked what he meant by strange. The man said his whole body was glowing. The other man said he knew what normal Kleins looked like. But this one was definitely not normal. Shira asks about Klein in detail and says that he was covered in grains of light. The man says that it looked like that. Shira's face changes a little. Suddenly, a terrifying scream was heard throughout the forest. The wounded adventurers said that this monster had followed them. Suddenly, a terrible monster appeared from behind the trees. Shira shouted to the wounded adventurers that she would hold him back, so they should leave here immediately. Suta smiles and asks if it's really Klein. But Shira opens the bottle of liquid with trembling hands and says it's not Klein. She says that she has already told the boy about gradations. There are gradations for monsters too. Killing Klein is an A-rank quest because Klein is a B-rank monster. However, due to the special voice ability of some individuals and their ferocious nature, they are called Nut Kleins and are classified as A-rank monsters. This monster in front of them is the one whose quest will say, Dangerous Order. Shira asks Nito and Toa how they are feeling. Nito says he is fine, and Toa says the same. Shira is surprised by this. She looks at her shaking hands and says that she was shocked by his voice, and her mana circulation in her body was completely disrupted. She recalls the incident when Nito dealt with a bandit, and said that if something went wrong, she could leave it all to him, because then she saw him, only for a moment, but was very amazed. Nito looks at the monster, whose name was Nut Klein. He was level 32. The young man realized that this was a very simple and easy monster. The young man tells Shira that he understood everything, and then asks her to give everything to him. He tells Toa that he is counting on her support. The girl says that she understands. Shira takes her sword with shaking hands and moves to attack. She uses Ice Flash and the Great Ice Sword. She wonders if Nut Klein is susceptible to weapons. She decides to test it now. Suddenly, the attack fails, and there is no trace left on the monster. Shira flies to the side from the blow. The monster attacks the girl with its paw in response. But Shira deftly dodges the blow. The monster heads straight for the girl. But Toa has prepared a trap in the form of a magic seal. The monster stands on the seal, and the girl uses light magic. The monster appears to be immune to magic. Shira says she heard that the Nut Kleins manipulate magic particles with their horns. The Toa says she senses magic particles in the area. Shira says that the first thing to do is destroy his horns. But Nito suddenly notices a glow and yells at everyone to move back. Nut Klein attacks with his spell and obliterates a huge area of the ground. Shira, who barely managed to dodge, is amazed by the magic light. Looking at the dent left by the beam of light on the ground, Nut Klein begins to shake and appears to be preparing to attack again. The Toa screams that she will not allow him to attack and puts her hands forward. She then uses a very powerful spell. Shira recognizes this spell as dual magic. The Toa then says the name and shouts Howl of Light. Following her words, a huge beam of light shoots out from the seals she created. The monster completely blocks the Toa's attack. The girl says that it is impossible. Shira trembles and says that in all this time they have not even injured him. Nito understands that simple brute force will not solve everything. If Nut Klein controls magic particles, then his attacks will have a magic bias. There must be a trick to his invulnerability, like his Soul Destroyer. Nito says that when the beam was fired, some of the light around Nut Klein disappeared, and when he opens it again, Shira asks what will happen if Nito is accidentally hit. Nito says that means, in that case, he will go alone. Shira asks to use her as a decoy. The young man says that everything is fine, and it is necessary to end this quickly. In the blink of an eye, he finds himself right above the monster's head. He uses his soul rupture magic. He then grabs Nut Klein's horns and rips them out. The monster screams hysterically in pain. Nito really caused the monster so much pain. The young man says that he broke its horns, and now the monster will not be able to block the girl's attacks. Then he says he wants to try something, so can the girl give it to him? Shira says she doesn't mind. The boy thanks her. He then gains a strange shadow and aura on half of his body, and then tells Shara to keep everything she saw today a secret. After some time, a speaker in one of the castles said that Klein was discovered surrounded by particles of light in the Grill Forest. The man who was taking notes asked about the light particles and who the informant was. The speaker replied that there were 4 adventurers. They were wounded and are currently in hospital. According to them, 3 more adventurers are currently fighting the monster. A man and 2 girls. One of the girls had silver hair and used a rapier as a weapon. The man is the leader of the White Royal Knights, Reinhard Rickman. The man took the cloak and told the speaker to tell Reed and Hilda that Shara was currently fighting Newt Klein. 2 days ago, when the whole village went to bed, the young man looked at Oliver's status. He was a fire mage, and even if Nito could receive elemental magic, he would not be able to use it. Suddenly, Nito receives a message. He realizes that this is somehow very much like a quest. He opens the letter. The message was about his wife Anna. It was because of her that he became a knight and was able to earn a position of leadership. But when he returned from battle, it turned out that his wife had become a thief and was killed during a theft. He was overcome with despair, and people began to mock him. Nito realized that this message was somehow connected with the murder of the king. He puts the paper back in the envelope and puts it away in storage. Nito wondered why the man needed this order. There was still much he couldn't learn from this message. Suddenly, a notification pops up that Hellfire had been purchased. Nito was surprised that magic was easy to learn, but he didn't know such a spell. But it's possible that this magic is not elemental. He leans against the wall of the building and sighs, saying that he hates healers. Then he wonders if this spell can be inverted. The opposite of fire is water. Nito wants to try to accomplish his plan. A notification pops up that the inversion ability from the God of Vengeance magic has been activated. The magic Hellfire is changed to a magic called Bloody Tears of the Goddess. Meanwhile, Nut Klein was writhing in pain. Nito felt a strange sensation. It was as if he had changed. Suddenly, something cracked in the sky. Toa told everyone to look up. Suddenly, someone's hands appeared through the crack, and then a huge head of a girl with black eyes appeared. The girl looked at Nut Klein. He was trapped in a pillar of light and could not get out. Then the girl began to cry black tears. And when these tears fell on the monster, they destroyed a certain area on it. Suddenly, the monster was drenched in black rain from the girl's tears. Shira was very surprised and scared. Meanwhile, the monster was just cracking and bursting from this black liquid. Finally, there was almost nothing left of the monster. The girl began to disappear, and her last drop of tears turned into a huge amount of black liquid, which destroyed the monster completely. Toa asked Nito if this was the end. The youth replied that he thought it was. The black aura began to disappear from his body, and he realized that the strange feeling had disappeared. Suddenly, the sound of horses' hooves could be heard from afar. The boy says that someone is coming, and they need to leave before they are seen and caught. He tells Shara that the rest is up to her because he does not want to be seen. The girl asks about what just happened. Nito tells her to tell her anything. He said that he showed it for one reason, because he trusts her, so what she does with it is up to her now. Nito suggests the girl to meet in Capital later. He will tell the innkeeper about the place. Later, she can ask and come to Nito. Then Nito and Toa disappear. Shira looks at them in fear, and then falls to the ground and wonders who Masamune is. Reinhard Rickman says that according to the information received, Shira and her comrade should be somewhere nearby. Royal White Knight Reed Black says he hasn't had a proper fight in a long time, so he hopes to cut down Nut Klein with his scythe. Royal White Knight Hilda Carlat slowly listened to Reed's sarcastic words about her sister now dying. Suddenly, Reinhardt feels something run past him. He turns around abruptly. Reed asks what happened to him. Reinhardt saw that there was no one behind him and said that nothing had happened. After a while, Reed was standing next to a huge black pile and asking what the hell it was. He also asked if Nut Klein was supposed to be in that pile. Reinhardt looked at the black pile where a skeleton was slightly visible and assumed that this was Nut Klein. Reed started shouting that Reinhardt really believed this. The man said that they had no other leads anyway. Then he saw Shara and asked her what happened here and whether she could have done it. The girl was sitting unconscious on the ground. Hilda had already approached her and asked how she was feeling. Reinhardt says that according to the information they received, there should be 2 more people here, a girl and a man. Shira says that they are not here. Reinhardt asks her what all this means. He says that it takes at least 4 white knights to defeat Nut Klein, and he doesn't believe that Shara could kill him alone. The girl does not answer. Reed starts laughing and says that it looks like they were eaten by Nut Klein. And judging by Shara's condition, that seems to be the correct option. Hilda started yelling at Reed to shut up immediately, but the man continued to laugh. Reinhard sighs and says that he needs to contact the night squad and orders everyone else to pack their things. After some time, Reinhard reported saying that in that situation he thought that Shara had defeated Nut Klein, but due to her unstable state they could not confirm this. He also says that he thinks it is necessary to wait for the final results. The King of Rathausen, Arnold Rathausen, says that he has understood everything and that he trusts this matter to Reinhard. Reinhard leaves the king's office. On the way out, he is met by the king's white knight, Daniel King. The man asks if Reinhard has spoken to the old eccentric. The young man calls Daniel an eccentric. He laughs and asks if the joke about Nut Klein was true. Reinhard replies that it is still under investigation. Daniel asks if there was something, but Reinhard replies that it is still under investigation. Daniel throws up his hands and asks if Reinhard really can't tell him anything, but the young man replies that he himself is in the dark. Shira was there, and if Daniel is so interested, he can ask her, and Nut Klein in turn is opened. So the man will find out everything himself later. Daniel smiles, and Reinhard doesn't understand why. Then the man says that he has known Reinhard for a long time, so he asks if there was anything suspicious there. Reinhard says that according to the information received, 3 people fought with Nut Klein, but they only found Shira, because when they arrived, the others were already gone. Reinhard says that Nut Klein, or rather his corpse, was damaged so much that Daniel will never understand who actually defeated him, not to mention the huge amount of black blood. Daniel realizes that the answer to everything will be given by those twins. Reinhard says that probably Shira knows exactly what happened, but for some unknown reason, she doesn't say anything about it. Daniel says that Reinhard could interrogate her. The man replies that he doesn't want to unravel something that she doesn't want to talk about. Daniel suggests that if those two were able to defeat Nut Klein, they are definitely abnormal and perhaps even as strong as them. Reinhard adds that they may even be stronger. Daniel starts laughing loudly, saying that it's just impossible. He asks if Reinhard really means that those two are even stronger than him. The man replies that he doesn't know. However, if they pose a threat to the country, then Shara, who protects them, must be prepared for the consequences. He also says that he wants to know whether they are enemies or allies. Meanwhile, the Toa speaks of a gloating backlash and says that healers should not have elemental magic. Nito says that from now on, it would be better if this magic were sealed. After all, even with his bare hands, he easily broke the horns of Nut Klein. Toa takes Nito's hands and says that everything is fine, because if he does not want to use his powers, then she will use all her abilities and protect him. Nito thanks the girl and then says that he has always wondered about one question. When they first met, why did the girl trust him? Toa was about to start talking, but Shura distracted them. The boy tells Toa that she will tell him everything next time, and the girl agrees. Shara asks if she disturbed Toa and Nito, but Nito says there is no need to worry. He also apologizes for making Shara come all this way. The girl says that Nito shouldn't attract too much attention to himself today. Nito asks why. The girl says that Nut Klein was taken by the White Knights. She didn't say a word about Nito and the Toa, so they have nothing to worry about, but she can't give any guarantees. Nito thanks the girl for her help. Nito asks if they can get a reward, since the original mission was to subdue a normal monster, Klein. Shira says that it is better not to do that, since there is a high risk of being discovered, so it is better this way. Shira started asking Nito about something, but before she could finish speaking, someone appeared nearby. The girl asked why he was here, but the man said that the power that turned Nut Klein into a farm. He says that having such power in your hands is very cool. The man was Reed Black. The man was asking which of the two had taken his loot. When the wounded adventurers told the gatekeepers everything, they, the Royal White Knights, immediately advanced onto the battlefield. However, by the time they reached their destination, Nut Klein's horns had already been broken, and all that was left of the monster was a meat mush, with everything around covered in dark blood. Normally, Nut Klein, who's immune to magic, can only be killed with normal physical attacks. But there is no doubt that this whole mess is the work of magic. Usually, no one can simply break Nut Klein's horns due to their incredible hardness. However, this does not make sense, because no matter how you look at it, even the method of killing is very cruel, because the battlefield is left in a mess. Being able to kill a sacred beast like it was a normal monster was not something Reed could ignore. Nito says that, long story short, the knights were skeptical of Shera from the start, so they decided to follow her. Reed says that Nito hit the nail on the head. Shera started screaming that Nito and Toa were her friends and they were not enemies at all. Reed said that it was not up to Shera to decide. Then he jumped into the air and said that it was up to him to decide. Suddenly Reinhard, who was sitting in his office at the time, looked out the window. He felt Reed's magic. He assumed that something had happened. At that moment, Toa appeared in front of Nito. Reed was surprised that the girl blocked his blow at the last moment. He asked her name. The girl said that her name was Todorika. It was she who killed Nut Klein. Reed started laughing, repeating the words that she killed him. He says to think that a woman could have caused such a mess. He looks at Nito and says that he still doesn't sense any magic from this young man, but he does sense incredible magic coming from the Toa. He attacks the girl with renewed vigor. The girl says she's fine, so Masamune should stand behind her. Suddenly, Reed comes very close to her and asks if the Toa really has time to turn around. The girl reflects his attack and speaks. Reed says that this is interesting and very similar to someone who can kill Nut Klein. However, it is all useless because he uses his trump card first. Reed uses fire armor. He rushes towards the Toa and says it's time to begin the second round. He asks the Toa not to think that the attack now will be exactly the same as before. Suddenly, he touches the girl's face. Nito calls out to her, but the Toa says she's fine. Reed asks what's wrong with her, then says that with a simple sword, the girl can't stop his scythe. So he asks the girl to use magic and show all her true power. The girl says that this is all her power. Reed clicks his tongue and shouts that if that's the case, he'll finish her off right now. Suddenly, Reinhard appears right between them. He stops both the Toa's attack and Reed's attack at the same time. Reed screams and asks why Reinhard stopped him. Reinhard says that the case is now his, and then menacingly asks Reed what he thinks he is doing now. Nito uses his healing aura and heals the injured Toa. He smiles and says that he's lucky, because there's not even a scar left on his face. The girl thanks him. He then asks why the girl didn't use magic because he is sure that she wouldn't lose to him. The girl says that she couldn't do that because if she had used it, everything around would have been destroyed. Reed says that Toa is the one who killed Nut Klein. Reinhard asks what and so what. Reed starts screaming and asking what is wrong with Reinhard. Reinhard says that just because the Toa killed Nut Klein doesn't mean she's their enemy. She just got rid of the monster, as the quest stated. Reed asks why she ran away then, because doesn't that mean she has something to hide? He also calls Reinhard very stupid. Reed asks Nito if he really used healing magic just now. He also asks if the boy is a reaper. Nito replies that he is a healer. Reed starts laughing and says that it's no wonder he couldn't sense anything from Nito. After all, the boy is just another trash healer. Reed continues laughing. He turns to Toa and says that her group is full of useless trash. Nito remembers Saki and thinks that Reed is similar to him. Reinhard decides to look at Nito and thinks about Reed's words, that he said that he couldn't feel anything from this young man. He looks at Nito and something really scares him. He thinks he can't believe his eyes, because this is impossible. He turns to Nito, but Reed interrupts him. The man says that if Reinhard is not going to do this, then he should be kind enough to just stand aside. Reed says that he doesn't care if the opponent is someone or something else. When you see someone strong, it's better to get rid of them before they become even stronger. He swings at Nito and Toa when Reinhard suddenly yells at him to stop. But suddenly there is a huge explosion. There is a lot of dust around. Reinhard sees an unharmed Nito with a defeated and unconscious Reed lying at his feet. Reinhard says that now everything is clear, and Nito is the one who killed Nut Klein. They were standing in a huge hole that Nito made, Sheena screaming for Reinhard not to touch Masamune. Reinhard was very surprised that Toa and Shena were so far away. It turns out that Nito simultaneously moved the girls to a safe distance and attacked Reed. Shira asked Reinhard to lower his sword because Masamune was only doing it to protect the Toa. Reinhard realized that he had pulled out his sword without thinking at the moment of the explosion. He apologizes to Nito and says he was a little shocked. Nito asks if Reinhardt really knew from the start that he was the one who killed Nut Klein. The man replies that Reed said that she felt nothing from the boy. However, this is impossible. From birth, magic awakens in a person. No matter how little it is, knights can sense it from anyone. However, Reinhardt goes down to the boy and Reed and says that there are exceptions when a person's magical power far exceeds their own. In other words, Nito possesses a colossal amount of magic that even Reinhardt and Reed cannot see. Anyway, Reinhardt apologizes for not being able to stop Reed, so he says he will take full responsibility for his actions. Nito says it's okay, and they'll just forget about it. He then says that they just don't want to stand out. He and the Toa just want to take on normal guild quests and get rewarded like normal adventurers. They just want to live a quiet life. Reinhardt says that he will make sure that Nito and the Toa are given a reward for killing Nut Klein, and he will also not tell anyone about the incident with Reed. However, he still has to report to the king. So Reinhardt suggests playing it off as if Nito and the Toa help Shera kill Nut Klein. He suggests that Nito move in that direction. The young man realizes that Reinhardt can be trusted and says that such a scenario would be excellent. Reinhardt then picks up Reed, who was unconscious, and said that it was time for them to leave. He asks Masamune's name and apologizes for the inconvenience. He then suggests that they meet again sometime. After some time, Nito realizes that he did it after all. Even if Toa had held back throughout the entire fight, he had ruined everything. Who would have thought that a simple blow from him could make so much noise? He hopes they won't be forced to fix the tiles. After a while, Daniel meets Reinhardt and says that there have been so many reports about this old eccentric today. Reinhardt asks him if he understood anything. Daniel says that this Nut Klein was quite strange, as it barely resembled itself when they found it, so it took them a while to return the monster to its original form. The really weird thing is that he was completely empty inside. Reinhardt asks what Daniel means. Daniel says that when the autopsy team realized he was thinner than a normal Nut Klein, they discovered there were no organs inside him. The whole case leads to the conclusion that he was dead from the start. Reinhardt and Daniel conclude that there is someone behind the scenes pulling the strings like a puppeteer. Daniel also says that, however, sacred animals are mutated monsters, so he has never heard of anyone being able to manipulate them. The man doesn't know what the enemy wants to achieve, but he doesn't think they'll stop there, so they should explore this forest as soon as possible. Reinhardt agrees. Reinhardt says he's appointing Daniel as the head of the research team, and then asks if he can handle the task. Daniel says he can. Meanwhile, Reinhardt gets a very strange feeling. An unknown threat is approaching this kingdom. Nito and Toa had no money, so they decided to accept Shera's invitation. So they ended up in the Ikarut family's ancestral estate. After some time, sitting at the table, Nito says that he realized that Shera is a noble girl. Shera, embarrassed, says that he is a real knight and she is not a noble lady. The man sitting next to him turned to the young man and said that he did not think that they would meet so quickly. The man was Shera's father, Brown Eckerard. The man said that Shera had talked only about him the night before, so he had a desire to meet him at least once in his life. Shera's mother, Maria Eckerard, asked if Masamune was really that strong. She said she had heard that the young man had saved a boy from the village of Tanya. Nito turns around, and Shera suddenly turns away. The boy wonders if Shera can even keep her mouth shut. Suddenly the door opens and Hilda, Shera's sister, enters the dining room. The girl informs that she is home. The girl's mother says that Nito and Toa are their guests, whom Shera brought as her friends. Hilda introduces herself as Shera's older sister and says that she is very pleased to meet her. Nito immediately blushes, but then notices Toa's eyes on him. Hilda thanks Nito for helping Shera in Tanya village. She also says that today, it seems, the young man has helped her out again. Nito tries to understand whether the girl really means Nut Klein and how she knows this. Suddenly, the young man remembers this girl, because it was she who was with Reinhardt when Nito and the Toa were hiding from the scene of Nut Klein's murder. Shera interrupts their conversation and says that her sister Hilda is also a royal white knight, just like her. Nito wonders if there is a possibility that all the royal white knights come from noble families like the Ikarut family. Nito says that both sisters serve the country and are part of the king's white knights. He expected nothing less. Hilda says that it just so happened that the White King had a couple of empty seats. Nito says he understands, and then asks if Shera and Hilda can be considered heroes. Hilda says that she, like Shera, studied fencing from a young age and became a knight of the kingdom. It was only years later that they were recognized and appointed as the White Royal Knights. However, the story of the commander of the White Knights is different from that of Hilda and Shera. He was personally chosen by the White King at the age of only 12. Someone like Reinhard can be called talented because he is a true genius. The girl then smiles and says that Masamune is also in a completely different league. The young man blushed and thought about how much this girl knew. Shira jumps up and stops her sister, yelling at her to stop looking at him like that, and then warns Nito to be careful. Shera says that Hilda will not let any man she is interested in escape because she is like a snake. Hilda says that Shera is joking because she is the perfect older sister. She asks if he is her boyfriend by any chance. Shera says that whether he is her boyfriend or not has nothing to do with it. Hilda smiles and says that they will ask him directly, and then asks the boy what he thinks about Shera. The girl begins to feel embarrassed. The girl says that Shera and Nito are not dating. Shera screams that she is asking why they are even talking about this. Nito thinks that, in truth, they are just on good terms, nothing more. Suddenly, Toa slams a bottle of wine on the table. Nito is surprised that Toa drank it all. The girl turns to Shera and says that she wants to tell her something. She says that Musamune belongs to her. Nito yells at Toa to stop because it is very dangerous and advises her to sit down. He asks her how much she drank. Hilda laughs and says that it looks like Shera has a rival. The girl shouts that this is all completely out of place now. The Toa passes out. Hilda smiles after them. After some time, Nito puts Toa to bed. Shera says that her sister is a very kind person, and then she apologizes for saying too much. The girl also says that when they first met, Toa for some reason opened her heart only to Nito. The young man says that he hasn't asked about it yet, but he will find out why. Because he is also interested. He says he will ask Toa about it again. Shera says that when Nito finds out, he should tell her too. The young man agrees. Then Shera shows Nito his room. He thanks the girl. Then Shera asks if the young man is busy tomorrow, because tomorrow she can teach him how to use a sword. Nito thought that since he doesn't have money, he could take a quest from the Adventurers Guild. But he hopes that he can rely on Shera a little longer. He then agrees to spend time under her supervision tomorrow. The girl was happy and said that they would meet tomorrow. Nito realized that Shera could also make interesting facial expressions. Suddenly, Hilda sneaks up on him and says that it was really unexpected. Nito jumps back and asks what the girl is doing there. Hilda says she was just passing by. She then asks if the boy was really able to defeat Reed. Nito says that it seems like that was the result last time. Hilda asks if this is really for a Toa. She says she's heard a lot, but she still doesn't know what kind of relationship Nito and Toa have. But looking at her, it is easy to see that Toa is not indifferent to Nito, just as Nito is to Toa. The young man begins to feel embarrassed and says that he does not think that everything is so obvious. Hilda asks how about taking Shera with her. The girl says that this is the first time Shera has shown any interest in a man and the first time she has brought a familiar person into the house. Hilda says with a sad expression that Shera is more serious than ever and that everything is different now. Before, she rarely let anyone get close to her and always stayed somewhere halfway. So when Nito was about to leave the kingdom, why not take Shera with him? Ever since she was a child, she knew nothing but the way of the sword, and by the time Hilda realized this, Shera had already become a royal knight. However, it is so sad, because there are so many things in the world other than a simple sword. Nito says he doesn't mind, but Shera herself thinks so. Hilda says the young man shouldn't ask her now. He can ask her just before leaving. If he refuses, she asks to take her by force. Hilda says sadly that someday she will understand that it was better for her this way. Then they wish each other good night and go their separate ways. The next morning, Masamune opens his eyes and feels something moving nearby. He looks and sees Toa there, wishing the boy good morning. The boy says good morning to the girl and then asks her why she is in his room. The girl replies that when she woke up, there is no one around. The girl looks at the boy and asks if he is really against this. Masamune replies that he is not against it. Suddenly, Shera bursts into the young man's room and says that she heard him say something. Masamune, with a frightened face, wishes Shera good morning. Half-naked, Toei wishes the girl the same. Shera says that Masamune is a man after all, so nothing can be done, but she asks him to at least restrain himself a little here. Meanwhile, Hilda was standing outside the door and giggling. She showed the room to the lost Toa. After some time, Masamune learned fencing from Shera. The girl says it's too early, but why don't they take a break? The boy says that sounds great. Masamune thinks that swordsmanship is quite difficult. He thought it was something he could quickly master, but now he wonders if he can teach swordsmanship at all. He asks Shera when she started practicing with the sword. The girl starts counting and says that it was around the age of 3. At that time, she was still using a wooden sword, but when her talent was noticed, everything changed. He then turns to Toa and asks when she started training with the sword. The girl says she doesn't remember, but it was around the same age as Shera. The girl says that one day she got lost in the forest near the castle and was attacked by a Leo wolf. Then her father saved the little Toa. After that, her training in sword and magic began. Shera was very surprised and asked again if the girl was really talking about that very Leo wolf. Shera says she's never seen it. The Leo wolf is an S-rank monster. She asks if Toa's father was really able to defeat it. The girl says yes, and then her father made a stuffed animal out of the Leo wolf. Masamune asks if S-rank is really stronger than Nut Klein. Shera, frightened, says that to say he is stronger is to say nothing. The girl says that only if the royal knights and adventurers combine their forces, they will be able to defeat one such Leo wolf. The young man thinks that it would not be good to meet such a monster. Masamune then asks if anyone in his country has seen the S-monster and if anyone has fought with it. Shera says she doesn't know the details, but she heard that the Royal White Knights had mounted a raid like this in the past. She says Reinhard should probably know about it. Shera says that Reinhard is number 1 in the guild, and for S-rank monsters, there are special S-rank missions. Since the area around Radhausen is relatively peaceful, such missions are a real rarity. In addition, although such missions are intended for S-rank, A-rank was also often sent into battle. Also, each type of monster has its own individual differences. Even monsters of the same species can be S-rank or higher depending on their level. Masamune says that means it all depends on the monster's level. He remembers the mimic and wonders what about him at level 500 and what rank he will have. Shera thinks about it and says that if a monster of that level really exists, then it is outside the ranking system. Masamune asks what that means. Shera explains that basically the guild ranking system goes up to SSS. Above that, there's an infinite rank, but it's not really a rank. It's more about how unconfirmed the monsters are. Masamune clarifies that, in other words, level 500 is not confirmed, so it is an infinite rank. The girl says that if level 500 is found, it will still remain outside the rank system. It's a kind of insurance for the guild. Masamune asks if Shera really thinks that level doesn't exist. The girl agrees, but says that she can't completely deny it. Even if she meets one of them, she won't be able to report him because she simply won't be able to survive such a meeting. So it will remain unconfirmed. Masamune thinks that he would like to meet this mimic again. He wonders what kind of dungeon this was. He realizes that he should have asked Shan about everything, because he feels like Shan knew a lot of things. This information would be very useful to Masamune. After this conversation, Masamune, Toa, and Shera trained until the evening. When Toa got completely bored, she decided to take part too, and Masamune finally learned how to wield a sword from the two of them. Suddenly, Masamune finds himself in an unknown place, namely at a ruined temple. The young man says that he was supposed to sleep in Shera's house. The young man thought that he had died, but suddenly someone shouted at him from behind, saying that they had not seen each other for a long time. Shaun behind him. He asks why the man is here. Shaun calms Masamune down and asks him to walk with him for a while. They ascend to an unknown place. Suddenly, the young man sees an unknown person in front of him. He says that the young man has finally come here. He turns around and says that he was the one who summoned him to this world. Masamune asks who this man is and if he is Shaun's friend. The man says that Masamune probably doesn't recognize him in this form. He then transforms and asks if Masamune recognizes him now. The boy recognizes that voice. The young man recalls an incident when he was asked to drink a bottle of strange liquid in the dungeon when he first began his journey. Shaun asked permission to introduce his comrade, but he did not have time to say the name, because the man said he didn't have to say anything else. Shaun says the man is right and apologizes for that. Masamune asks again if the man really won't introduce himself, and he doesn't even know where he is right now. He asks to at least tell him something. The young man thinks that it's just his intuition. but he thinks that guy is the god of vengeance. He remembers Shaon's reaction when he asked him about the god of vengeance, and realized that he was surprised because Masamune mentioned his comrade's name. The god of vengeance says that this place means nothing to Masamune. But to Shaon and the god of vengeance, this place is some kind of prison. The god of vengeance says that he can be sure that his real body is now on the bed, and that what he summoned the boy to this place is something like his soul. He asks Masamune to think of it this way. Masamune asks what the god of vengeance means. The man replies that the elixir the boy drank also has an effect that can connect the god of vengeance with the one who drinks it. He used this connection to call the boy here. Masamune asks to wait a minute, and asks first of all what kind of elixir it was. The god of vengeance answers that this elixir was created based on his blood. It gives the one who drinks it one unique ability, although the ability it gives will be random. But it will always give an infinite level ability. In short, an unidentified skill. However, among these abilities, there are some that the youth cannot use. The god of vengeance says that Masamune is very lucky, as he was able to obtain an ability strong enough to defeat even Shaon. Shaon, meanwhile, nodded his head. Masamune says that, of course, the abilities he received helped him a lot back then, so he is grateful for it. But the boy asks why the god of vengeance chose him. The man replies that he did not choose him specifically, and it could have been anyone. He placed the elixir there on a whim for experimental purposes, and it just so happened that Masamune found it. The young man reflects that if he hadn't been lucky, he would have been dead and eaten by that mimic. The god of vengeance then asks if it's okay to get to the main topic now. Masamune says it is, and then adds that he also wants to get back to his bed as soon as possible. Shaon approaches him and tells him that Masamune will receive his swordsmanship. Masamune does not understand anything. The young man then asks for a break because he had already trained in fencing during the day, so why should he train with two old men in such a place? He then asks if this is the reason why they called him here. The god of vengeance replies that he cannot tell him that. He also cannot tell the youth why he cannot say that, and what Shaon is about to do is to pass on his swordsmanship to Masamune. It will all be over in an instant. Masamune says that the god of vengeance cannot tell him anything, and whether this is related to the fact that he cannot tell the boy his name. The god of vengeance replies that he cannot tell him his name either. Masamune then turns to Shaon and asks why he is here, and shouldn't he have died, and what happened anyway. The man replies that he can't say that either. Masamune ponders that the god of vengeance and Shaon keep saying that they can't say anything, and that they also mention that this place is a prison for them. The youth assumes that the two are somehow connected. Masamune says that he understands everything and will not ask. Shaon apologizes to him. The god of vengeance says that sooner or later the young man will get an answer, so there is no need to rush. Shaon then says that it is time to pass on his swordsmanship to Masamune. As his friend said, it will all be over in an instant. However, he warns that the boy will feel the same pain as when he drank the elixir. Shaon asks if the boy will be okay with that. He says that everything should be fine because he has become stronger since then, so it won't hurt as much as when he drank the elixir. Shaon grabs Masamune's head with his huge hand. Masamune realized that something was wrong and asked what Shaon was doing to him. The man smiled and said that it meant the boy agreed. Before Masamune could answer, a multitude of different swordsman movements began to appear in his head. Unable to bear it, he fell to his knees, and then he realized that the pain was gone. Shaon asked the young man how he was feeling. He replied that he had some memories. Shaon explained that there is a snake technique, a beast king technique, Greybird-style Kenjutsu, an emperor-style, Rinto, a basilisk technique, and many other techniques. Suddenly, the young man notices that there is one technique that he does not know the name of. Shaon says that this is his swordsmanship. Using all these swordsmanship styles and his experience, he has created a skill that has no weak points. He says that Masamune will definitely need this in the future, but for now he should just take it all and say nothing. The god of vengeance then tells Masamune that he must send it to Bayonne, find a woman there named Khalifa. When he finds her, he must tell her exactly one phrase about how he will wait for her on that hill. Masamune doesn't even know what's going on, but the god of vengeance keeps adding to his to-do list. He says that if she keeps asking questions, she will understand if Masamune says that it is in the third drawer. The boy agrees. He says that he just wants a regular adventure, but since he is in debt to the god of vengeance, he will do what he asks when he visits that city. The god of vengeance also says that this is just a suggestion, but he must go to school to learn magic. The young man asks if the man is really talking about magic. Masamune is a healer, but the god of vengeance says that this will not be a hindrance, because when he studies, his knowledge will grow, and he will be able to learn a lot about his profession. Even if Masamune can only use healing and support magic, he can still expand his magical repertoire, because magic is limitless. These words echoed in Masamune's mind, because these words were some kind of salvation. He agrees to do it. Shion approaches the young man and says that as for his snake sword, he can give it to that demoness, because this sword is quite special and it definitely won't suit him. He then asks how the boy knows about the Toa. He even suggested that they were always watching him. Suddenly, Masamune fell to the ground and his power began to fade. His vision became blurry. The god of vengeance said that it seemed that time was up, and they could not summon him here so many times. There was a possibility that this could be their last conversation, so he asked them to find him. At this time, in the royal capital of Rashausen, in the Old Town area, an unknown person was walking through the streets. A man was sitting at the table and said, "Is it really Madame Fran that has come to see him?" Boyfriend. He also apologizes for making her come all this way. The woman thanks for the invitation. Then he calls the name of the man sitting at the table, Guido Sidor. The man says that the madam can simply call him Guido. Then he introduces the girl standing next to him as his assistant, named Yoon Yi. The madam smiles and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. She asks if everything is okay with the girl. Yoon Yi replies that she has no problems. The madam sits her down and says that the girl is responding coldly, as always. But that is exactly what she likes about her. Then Madame Fran gets down to business and asks why she was invited here. Guido says that there was a small problem. The spirit beast that Madame Fran sent was killed and became completely useless. The woman then asks how many of the White King's knights died, but Guido says that no one died fighting the beast. He bites his nail and says that the thing is that an unknown traveler intercepted the beast. By the time the Knights of the White King arrived, the spirit of the beast was already covered in blood. Madame Fran asks if the beast's spirit was really bloody. She says that's a rather unusual expression. Guido says he had to retrieve the corpse that the autopsy team took, so he puts out a small object and says he wants Madame to use her magic again to revive the two beasts. Madame says that she understands what Guido is getting at and offers him to take the item she has taken out. Guido examines the huge flask and asks what it is. Madame says that the moment she received Guido's invitation, she foresaw what he might ask for, so she provides her gift for him. The young man asks what is inside the flask, to which Madame Fran replies that there is an army of monsters inside. Guido grins from ear to ear and says that it's just wonderful. Madame Fran says that she's glad he liked her gift. She also clarifies that all the monsters inside are B rank or higher, S rank monsters, so she thinks Guido might need them. Madame says that she borrowed some resources from the lab when she left the Empire, and then she recovered a small portion of them. Fran then asks when Guido is ready to make his next move. The man replies that it will be in a week, and until then, he wants Madame Fran personally to increase the quantity of perfume as much as possible. After Madame Fran left the negotiation site, Yoon Yi said that she didn't think her gift would be very useful. Guido said that this gift would be their insurance, because the traveler who dealt with the previous creature could intervene again and ruin their plans. The next morning, Masamune remembered the god of vengeance's words for the young man to find them. His thoughts were distracted by Toa, who was eating meat at the time. The girl asked what was wrong with the boy. She said that the boy had just said something, but Masamune replied that nothing of the sort had happened. Shira said that Masamune looked very pale. The girl asked if he was okay. The boy replied that he felt the same as usual. The girl asks if he is sure, since the boy was just watching a fencing practice. Toa adds that the boy did not even hold a sword. Shira then suggested that Masamune might have lost his enjoyment of practicing. The boy responded that he still enjoyed training and felt like he was growing. He says that today he just wants to see the city. He asked the girls not to worry about it too much. The truth is, he couldn't stop thinking about what happened last night. There was so much going on that he couldn't focus on anything else. However, when he watched the train god of Shira and Toa, he realized something. He watched their fight as if in slow motion, as if it was predictable. So what happened last night wasn't just a dream. If he had picked up a sword this morning, he would definitely have done something different than yesterday. So the girls would have started questioning him. Masamune tries to figure out what excuse he should come up with to avoid tomorrow's training. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by Toa, who points out the window and asks what that is. Outside the window, a huge man was walking down the street, pulling a small child behind him, who had ears and a tail like an animal. Shira apologizes for disturbing them both, but the girl asks to immediately follow this man. Most likely, this person is a trader of prohibited goods. The man brings this beastman and throws him to the ground. He says that this girl should be taken to the cage immediately. The man who was next to him said that the beastman would be highly valued. The man tells the other to be careful not to damage the merchandise. They put the beastman in a cage and tell her to stay there obediently and not to make too much noise. The man licks the blade and tells the beastman that she probably doesn't want her ears mutilated. The beastman curls up into a ball and begins to cry, calling for his sister to help. Suddenly, more people come up to her and say, looking at her, "They have a good catch today." Another says that the race of white cats is a very unusual find. Another one says that compared to the girl they had the other day, this new beast girl is much better. The man says that their boss is away right now, so he asks the second one how about they play with her a little now. He says the boss won't notice even if they hurt her. The other man says it's a great idea, and his stress has been building up for the last few days. The man opens the door and calls the beast girl over. He tells her not to move, because it will all be over soon. The beast man began to struggle, but the man told her not to worry, because there was nothing to be afraid of. The second one asked the man to hurry up, because the boss might return soon. Suddenly, one of the men made a choking sound, and then flew to the other end of the room, breaking the boxes standing there. Masamune let go of his hands. He says he thinks that it would be enough for them to just faint. The beastman looked at the young man who entered with shining eyes. He turns to her and asks if she is okay. He says that he accidentally saw her being taken here, so he came here to save her. He extends his hand to her and tells her not to worry, because he won't hurt her. So he offers to get the girl out of here. After some time, when Masamune and the girl went outside, they were met by Toa and Shira. The girls waved to him. The beast girl asked about Masamune, to which the boy replied that it was his name, and then he asked the girl's name. She said that her name was Nemu. Shira came up to her and said it was nice to meet Nemu, and then said her name was Shira. The girl asked Nemu if she knew where her home was, to which the little girl replied that her home was where her sister was. Shira said that she understood everything and, as he thought, this house was a church. Toa asked what Shira meant by the church. The girl answered that it was essentially an orphanage, that is, a place where children are temporarily looked after. Reaching one of the orphanages, Shira said that it seemed that Nemu was one of their children. Masamune looks around the building and thinks that it looks more like an old mansion than a church. Nemu opens the door of the building and sees a maid there. She screams, calling her sister, and runs into the woman's arms. The girl starts asking where Nemu disappeared to, because her sister was very worried. The girl apologizes and says that she was caught by a scary man. But then Masamune saved her. The sister looks at the people entering the church. After some time, sitting at the table and drinking tea, Shira told her sister what had happened. The woman thanked them for saving Nemu and said she didn't know how she should repay them. Shira told her sister not to worry about it, because they were happy as long as Nemu was okay. The woman says that Nemu sometimes went to see her friends secretly. The royal capital is relatively safe, and people do not discriminate against beastmen. The woman thought that there was nothing to worry about. She turned pale and said that she had been wrong in her guess. To think that Nemu had fallen into the hands of traders in prohibited goods when it was supposedly prohibited. Masamune asks Shira about the ban. The girl said that she had omitted this explanation, but buying and selling slaves is prohibited in Razhausen. And of course, kidnapping people is also prohibited. However, this is also a fact, but some people still do such things in hidden places. If Toa had not noticed the kidnapping in time, Nemu's fate would have been completely different. Suddenly, Masamune notices something on Nemu's left hand and asks if his sister knows what is on it. The girl looks straight at the girl in horror. The sister pulls up the sleeve of Nemu's sweater and begins to sob in horror, saying that this simply cannot be. Shira says that this drawing represents a slave comb, that is, a harem, which merchants cut on their goods. In other words, a slave's comb is evidence of a slave. It's a common thing for male subordinates to have. But Nemu probably got this crest because she's a beast man. The comb itself has no special effect, but it is clear that those who receive the comb refuse to escape. Perhaps it is intended as a chain that binds the mind, saying that you belong to another person. Masamune wonders how many lives those merchants destroyed. He let Shira handle it, but he had to kill them all on the spot. Suddenly, Toa calms the boy down and asks if he's okay because he just made a scary face. Shira tells Masamune not to worry and to save the rest for later. The girl said that she had already contacted Annette and the young man had nothing to worry about. He said that the girl was absolutely right and everything would be fine. After some time, Masamune and the girls were about to leave. Nimue and her sister came out to check on them. Masamune sat down next to Nimue and told her to be careful for now, and also to try not to go out alone again. He said goodbye to her, but promised to return tomorrow. Toa asked Masamune if he was really going to visit Nimue again tomorrow, because when they parted, he mentioned that he would return to her tomorrow. The young man smiled and said that she was playing with the other children as if nothing had happened, so he was sure that when tomorrow came, she would forget about him. However, the next morning, Nimue happily ran to Masamune and called him master. The young man asked why Nimue was there, to which the girl replied that she came here to meet the master. Nimue asked Masamune, calling him master again, where they were going. The youth said that they were heading to the guild. Masamune is staying at Shira's house, but he can't continue like this and live there, so he needs to earn some money. Nimue shouts that, as expected of a master, he is indeed an adventurer. The girl says she will go too. Suddenly, Masamune calls out to Toa. Toa and Shira stood stone-faced and looked at the young man. Toa asked him, saying that she suddenly wondered why Nimue called him master. Masamune started screaming at the girls to listen to him, since he hadn't asked her to call herself that. Toa asked with a narrowed gaze if that was really true. Then the girl turns to the beast girl and asks why she calls Masamune master. The girl says that her mother taught her this word. The woman says that when someone saves your life, you must love that person for the rest of your life. Nimue says that the master saved her, and therefore he is her master. Toa replied that if Nimue said so, she would have to believe it. Suddenly, a familiar merchant approaches them and asks if these guys really know Nimue. The beast girl starts screaming and happily says, introducing the merchant Masamune, that this young man is Master Nimue. The woman makes a very strange expression. Masamune realizes that this is becoming problematic. After some time, Masamune, Toa, and Shira explain to the merchant what had happened to Nemu. The woman examined her hand and said that she understood everything and that it must have been very cruel. She pats Nemu on the head and says that she is very glad that Masamune and the girls saved this little girl. Nemu often comes to play in this woman's shop, so she is like a daughter to her. The woman says that if it were possible, she would like to hit those who tried to harm little Nemu, but still she cannot believe that the day of farewell will come so soon. The woman tells Masamune that Nemu has chosen him as her master, so he must not fail her. If something happens to Nemu, the woman will drop everything and come beat the boy. Masamune wonders if there is some deeper meaning to him being Nemu's master. Meanwhile, the girl approaches a woman named Sharon and says that she is very scary, to which the woman replies that it is natural behavior for parents. Then a man comes into the shop. He says he was trying to find Shira. The girl recognized him as Edward. The girl says that she sees that the man still uses this appearance in public. The girl asks if the man really cares about it. Edward replies that no one would even think that he is one of the White King's knights, and, after all, it is a normal appearance. Then, changing the subject and looking at Masamune and Toa, Edward asks who those people are next to Shira. The girl introduces Masamune, Toa, and Nemo. Edward asks if they are really the ones rumored to be in the White Knights. He takes off his hat and bows, apologizing for the late introduction. The man says his name is Edward Scotch, and he is one of the White King's knights. The man also says he is very pleased to meet you. Shira then asks why the man was trying to find her. The man takes out a roll of paper and says it is a message from Reinhard. Shira unfolds the roll and cannot believe her eyes. Edward says it's the king's request. A basilisk has appeared in Vic, and more. Edward explains to Shira that the basilisk appeared in a barn belonging to Boreas, a friend of His Majesty. Toa asks about the basilisk. Nemu says that she knows about basilisks too. The basilisk, according to Nemu, is a huge snake. Shira asks why the order was given to her. Edward says he does not know. He was only ordered to give her the written order. He is sure that His Majesty has his own reasons for choosing Shera. Then he breaks into the conversation and asks Shera for a favor while they are there. The woman says she needs the basilisk's tear glands and venom sac, as well as large fangs, because she doesn't have any either. The woman says she would appreciate it if they collected them for her after they killed the basilisk. Masamune says that he will go with Shera on this mission, and if the boy goes, then Toa will go with him too. The girl asks if everything will be okay. The boy says it's time to repay her for letting them stay in her home. The Toa also says it's okay. The woman offers to take Nimue along, but Masamune says that she is still just a child. The girl starts crying and says that the master is not going to leave Nimue. The boy kneels down and says that they are going to fight an evil monster and asks if the girl understands this. Nimue says that she wants to be useful to the master. The woman tells the boy not to worry because despite her appearance, Nemu is a healer and much stronger than Masamune. The boy thinks about how Nemu was recently captured by traitors. He looks at the sad eyes of the little beast girl and says that he will allow her to do this only this once. After some time, Masamune's group was riding in a carriage to carry out tasks. Meanwhile, Shera was angry and said that the king was a real exploiter. The king sent her for a common basilisk. He could have sent someone from the guild, not to mention that the request came through the guild. The girl sees no reason to send her personally. Masamune told the girl to calm down and think of this task as a favor for Sharon. Masamune himself wonders why Shera is so worried about this. Suddenly, Toa changed the topic and asked Nemu what the beast girl can do. Can she use magic? The girl replies that she can't use magic, but she can make a cat fist. Masamune asks what it is. The girl is surprised that the boy doesn't know what it is. The girl gets up from her seat and says that Nimue will explain to the master, saying that a cat's fist is, but before she can finish speaking, she realizes that she herself doesn't know what it is. Nimue says that she only knows that it is a beastman art that was passed down to them, the cats. Masamune wants to know more. Shera explains that the beastman martial art is something that beastmen specialize in. She also clarifies that each type of beastman has its own martial art. In Nimue's homeland, this martial art is called the cat fist. Masamune understands that this is a combat technique. Masamune then asks Nimue if she really can't use magic. Nimue says that she can't use magic. But Nimue is a magical cat. If she is taught magic, she can use it. Shera is surprised by this because if a cat human can use magic, then this is a special class of cat people. The girl says that she heard that this is an innate class. It is considered to be of the highest ranks. Masamune asks that if a beastman has a birth class, then it could be a non-birth class. Shera says that some classes level up with age. She explains that she was an ordinary knight, but now she's an elite knight. The boy asks if he can really become a cleric after becoming a healer. Shera apologizes and says that it is impossible because clerics are an innate class. She says that the development paths of almost every class are already known. But as far as she knows, the healer class is not developed. Masamune realizes that he will remain a healer forever. Nimue asks if her master is truly a healer. The boy confirms this and says that this is why he only uses healing and support magic. Nimue raises his hand and tells the master not to be sad, because Nimue will protect the master, and the master saved Nimue, so the master is not weak. Nimue then asks when they will reach Bik. Shera says she thinks tomorrow. Shera says they will have to spend the night in the carriage. Masamune realizes that the road is further than he thought. Vik turns out to be quite far away. Masamune asks if it's okay that they left the capital. Shera says it's okay, because Edward will inform everyone up there. She also told Annette everything, just in case. Masamune wonders when she managed to do it. He saw the girl talking to the ring yesterday. He asks if Shera's ring really allows her to communicate over a distance. The girl shows the ring and says that it is indeed so. Every royal white knight has such a ring. The young man says that he has such a ring too. He says that he took it from someone but did not use it. It is very convenient in terms of being able to contact others despite the distance. Shera replies that her ring works within the kingdom, but Masamune's ring can work outside of it. The young man says that according to the one who gave it to him, everything is exactly like that. The girl examines the ring and says that it is very expensive and probably made of the purest materials. Toa asks who gave this ring to Masamune. The youth says that he met the man briefly. He says that the man suddenly attacked him, and he responded in kind. So suddenly, the man offered to become his comrade. The young man says that upon seeing him, the man's aura became aggressive, and when he thought it was all over, his magic prevented Masamune from escaping. He also said that he was from some organization and invited me to join them, told me to think about the offer, and gave me a ring. Shira said that it all sounded very suspicious, and then asked if the unknown person had told her the name of the organization. Masamune thought for a moment and said that the organization was called Dragonheart. Shira shuddered and was very surprised. Shira asked if the stranger really said that. Masamune asked her if she knew anything about this organization. The girl said that she thought everyone knew about them. The Dragonheart is known for hunting down politicians. They've killed many, those in power, guilty of embezzlement, murder, and the like. Most countries have put a hefty bounty on their heads. Masamune recalls that the stranger did mention something like destroying the rotten top or something. Shira said that it was probably them. She told about the incident that made the Dragonheart famous all over the world, which happened in the kingdom of Torrent. Queen Priva, ruler of Torrent, committed mass genocide in pursuit of the idea of a beautiful kingdom. She killed more than half of the kingdom's population. Most of the victims were old people. Masamune asks if that's why the Dragonheart organization came after her. Shira says that's true, but they didn't just kill Queen Priva. They killed everyone who was connected to the queen, and there were children among the dead. Masamune asks if the Toa knows about this. The girl answered that she knew about it, but not as much as Shira. She accidentally overheard her parents talking about their friend Carpent or something like that. He created the organization Dragonheart. Shira asks Masamune and wonders about the proposal of this unknown person. The young man answers that he does not know yet. He doesn't even know when they'll meet again, but it doesn't matter anyway. It's no use thinking about it until they see each other, because right now, they don't even know where this organization is. Still, it's very surprising to be invited by them. Masamune recalls that the three were going to visit Greyberg. He wonders what they are doing there now. At that time, in the kingdom of Greyberg, near the border, the guards noticed three unknown people. They ordered them to stop and take off their hoods. These people were the three who met Masamune at the very beginning of his journey. They belong to the Dragonheart organization. Greyberg is a kingdom with a huge territory. There's a checkpoint at the gates to Greyberg and another one in front of the main gate to the castle grounds. There are also several villages outside the city, protected by the castle. There are several more checkpoints there, so it was considered impossible to enter the kingdom undetected. One of the strangers who had disarmed the guards takes off his hood and turns to his comrade, saying that he was absolutely right and that these gates are almost unguarded. Another says that few people try to pass through here, and if they do, it will most likely be merchants or travelers. The girl says that it is not enough to put only 2 guards here. The man replies that they are probably all busy fighting demons. However, last time there were more guards. Having said this, behind the 3 strangers, the sound of horses' hooves was heard. In the end, they were cleverly encircled and surrounded. Suddenly, a horse with a rider approaches the strangers. The rider says that the knights who surrounded the trio have no chance, and they must retreat. The rider was an elderly man with a long beard. He said he would deal with the uninvited guests himself. One of the intruders addresses an older man and calls him Grandpa. The man says that he and Alfred haven't seen each other for a long time. He also says that he is glad to see him alive and well. However, he sees that the young man has decided to get mixed up with the scoundrel standing nearby. His Highness will be saddened by this news. The young man asks the man to stop pretending, saying that he continues to pretend as always. The man says he thinks Alfred has decided not to return home. He asks menacingly what business he could possibly have in this city, since this country has no reason to get involved with his kind. A dark-haired youth steps forward and asks to be introduced. His name is Zeke. The short version is that they have been informed that there is a call for heroes in Greyberg. This is a forbidden magic that requires great sacrifices. As far as the young man knows, there is no other way to summon it, except sacrifice. The man says that Zeke came here to get an answer to this question. He replies that he is not going to discuss it, so he asks him to just answer his question. He says that this magic will cause wars. Before that happens, they will bring death to all who are involved, quickly and accurately. The man says that the boy is very direct. He also says that there is no need to be so impatient. Zeke says it's only a matter of time before this spreads across the world. The effects of heroes summoning magic aren't easy to hide. The man says that Zeke should see for himself. However, he did not say that he would let them pass. Zeke is sure that means the man will fight back. He says that if he does, the man will die here. He names the man Albert Morlow. The man calls Zeke a brat and says that he knew about him from the start. The boy asks his comrades to step aside because he will deal with this himself. Zeke's comrade tells him to be very careful, because despite the man's appearance, he still has the class of a sage. Zeke tells the young man not to worry, because he will not give up his position in front of the great wizard known as the Forest Mage. The man says he's sorry because the trio would have had a chance if they had all attacked. Zeke says he can handle it just fine on his own. He says that Zeke seems to be grossly underestimating him, and then calls Dragonheart an organization full of fools. He gives his name and vows to end Zeke's life. Zeke, meanwhile, summons his dragon power and attacks Albert Marlowe. After a while, the entire battlefield was covered with huge trees. Albert Marlowe was lying in the roots of the trees, covered in blood. The man said that he never thought he would be defeated. He turned to Zeke and asked if he was really a man. He assumed that the boy was a dragon because he had once seen a dragon in his youth. Zeke says he sees no reason to answer that question. The man laughs and says the boy doesn't even have time to answer a dying old man. Zeke sits down next to him and asks him to ask again. He asks the man if the ritual to summon heroes was really performed in Greyberg. The man closes his eyes and says that the boy already knows the answer. He adds that there is no smoke without fire, but all evidence of the ritual was destroyed, so Zeke will not be able to find anything. The man admits that they performed the summoning ritual a month ago, and a lot can be done in that time. So the traces of magic have long since dissipated. Zeke stands up and says that it doesn't matter because Albert just admitted to performing the ritual of summoning heroes. So that's enough. The man says that what Zeke and his comrades are about to do is not justice. It looks like a massacre without reason. Zeke is hurt by the words about justice. He says that it is not a question of justice or vigilante justice, because it is not a question of whether they believe in it or not. Albert then turns to Alfred and asks him if this is really what he wanted. He asks if Alfred feels anything inside himself, seeing a man in such a state, and then wonders where good Alfred went. The young man replies that there is no point in appealing to his feelings, because from the very beginning all people meant absolutely nothing to him, so he feels only disgust. He also adds that Albert and Greyberg not only started a war with demons, but also practiced forbidden magic, sacrificing their subordinates. He also says that they are all just fools. He says with disgust that this country has come to an end. Albert replies that they are not fools and that all people should do the same, otherwise there is no point. Alfred turns away but then says that maybe it's lucky to die with such thoughts. He says the conversation is over and then orders the man to die quickly. Albert laughs and says that it is cruel to say such words to a dying old man. Lying on the tree roots, he says his last words that he sees that Alfred is no longer the prince he once knew. At this time, Nimue ran to her master and said that everything looked simply amazing. She was talking about the big market they were walking through now. Masamune and his group reached Vik. He was amazed by the large number of people. Shira said that the city is called a trading city, so there must be bigger crowds here. Nimue looks at the beautiful goods and tells Masamune that she really wants to buy these beautiful things. The young man replies that since they have already arrived in Vik, they can buy several goods. Shira suggests visiting the farm first and offering to give them a tour after they finish working here. After some time, when Toa arrived at the farm, she noticed a strange animal. She said that she didn't want to believe that the animal was called Wolstein because it didn't look cute at all. Masamune told the girl to hurry up and not fall behind, find herself facing an impassive Minas area. Shirei knocked on the door, but no one answered. Toa assumed that it seemed like no one was home. But suddenly Nimue noticed a large crowd of people. A crowd of people stood by a huge barn and discussed something. Someone asked someone to give up, and someone said that they were afraid every day. People stood and questioned one man. They said that according to information, he should have gotten rid of someone long ago. Others said that he couldn't just give up the place. Others asked to sell his farm and live in peace. They questioned the owner of the farm, named Bore Vik. The man panicked and asked the villagers to wait a little longer because he had sent a request to the guild in the capital. The woman shouted that Bore had been talking about this for a while, so it could be assumed that they weren't going to come here. The man replied that he was sure that help would come today. The man asked to wait for them a little longer, at least until tomorrow. But the residents did not agree with this. Masamune realized that these people were very cruel. Suddenly, Shira shouted for them to stop and asked for a moment of attention. She said that she was from the capital and that she had been sent to destroy the basilisk. The girl introduced herself as Shira. Borivik was surprised that the girl was an adventurer. The man was happy and asked everyone to see that the adventurers from the guild had finally arrived here, so now everything would be fine for them. People began to disperse and were indignant that the man couldn't tell them that the adventurers would arrive today, because they wouldn't have made so much noise if they had known. Borivik was shaking hands with Shira. At that moment, a man was looking at them. He spat and turned around, which attracted Masamune's attention. Nimu said that something smelled. Masamune asked her what it was, but the girl said that there was a strange smell in the air. Then they looked after the man. The man was still shaking Shira's hand and was happy that they had finally arrived. The girl said that they were a little late on the way. The man asked if they were really going to kill the basilisk. Masamune interrupted them and said that they would finish it today because he wanted to explore the city some more. The man asked the panicked young men to wait. He said that he was very grateful to them, but the basilisk was an A-rank monster. He said that he too was once an adventurer, but with all due respect, he believed that they should not be in such a hurry. Shira says there's no need to worry, as she guarantees that everything will go smoothly since Mr. Masamune is here. The young man thought that he was, of course, going to handle it today. But Shira was somehow relying on him too much, and this task was entrusted to her. Plus, she also blabbed his name. Shira offers to inspect the barn, and then asks if it really belongs to Boreas. The man answers in the affirmative. Shira calls Masamune and gives him the keys to the barn. They approach the barn together with Nimu, and the girl says that she was not imagining things. The little girl says that the barn smells exactly the same. Masamune says that she can't possibly mean the smell of the basilisk. Nimu replies that the man in rich clothes who was here recently smelled exactly the same. Boreas sits down next to him and asks her if she is really talking about the man with the wart under his nose. The girl gives a positive answer. Masamune asks the man if he knows anything about this man. Boreas says that his name is Mr. August, and that it is most likely him. Masamune asks if Boreas knows him. The man says that when he sent a request to the capital, August came and said that they had to get rid of the basilisk. Augustus is a merchant who once settled in the city. Shira asks if the merchant really wanted to get rid of the basilisk. Boreas replies that he wanted this land as a reward. Boreas Vik said that he found this proposal very strange, so he refused Augustus, because this land had been passed down from generation to generation. Masamune says he understands everything, and then suggests that Augustus is involved in all of this. Shira also says that this is probably true. Basilisks usually live deep in the forest, so it is very suspicious that he decided to make a nest here. The girl says that Augustus probably just wanted to get this land for himself. Boreas can't believe his ears and tries to understand why he went so far. Masamune says that it is a good thing they took Nimu with them. Otherwise, they would not have noticed the smell. Toa praises the girl for her excellent work. Masamune says that if that's the case, then it's better not to kill the basilisk, but simply drive it out. Shira suggests simply stunning him and taking him into the forest until he wakes up. The young man sees this as a great idea. Masamune opens the lock and unlocks the door, but sees 3 huge basilisk heads inside. He locks the door and says there are 3 basilisks inside. Shira is surprised and says the request only said 1 basilisk. The man says there was 1 basilisk there yesterday, but Shira is sure there couldn't be 3 overnight. The girl says that just a drop of basilisk venom is fatal, and no one would want to take on a quest with 3 basilisks unless there was a high reward. She also says that the rank of the quest would not change, but the reward is very strong. Masamune understands why Shira was reluctant to take on this request. It seems that leaving those basilisks behind would be too dangerous. Boreas clasps his hands and asks the adventurers for forgiveness. He says that there were 3 of them from the very beginning. Lord Augustus demanded to see what Boreas wrote in the task, so he had to lie. If people knew that there were 3 basilisks inside, they would take extreme measures. The man also understands that adventurers will not undertake to kill 3 basilisks. But he could not just sit idly by. Masamune asks Shira if he cuts off their heads. Will these monsters die? The girl answers in the affirmative. The young man says that the plan is changing and they will kill all the basilisks. He also remembers that Sharon still needs materials from the basilisks. Masamune says he can handle it alone, but no one should approach the barn. Nimue starts screaming that it is very dangerous because the boy is only a healer. Masamune tells the girl not to worry because he will finish them off quickly. He thinks that since he needs materials, he can't use decomposition because there will simply be nothing left of the monsters, so he will have to use the sword. The young man enters the barn and is met by 3 huge basilisks. He remembers a technique that will allow him to kill 3 opponents at once. He finds the technique he needs, which is Godspeed, using the Beast King style, which is the Beast King Abyss sword. In an instant, he cuts off the heads of 3 monsters and walks out into the street as if nothing had happened. In an instant, Nemu, Shera, Toa, and Boreas Vik looked at him in dead silence. She was very happy with him, and called the master amazing because he really did it quickly. Masamune said that he and Sharon needed to gather materials because Sharon needed tonsils, poison glands, and large fangs. The girl replied that she would start right away. Toa turns to Masamune and says that these basilisks were not dangerous. The boy asks what Toa means, to which the girl replies that they were trained. Suddenly, the merchant Augustus runs out to them and asks what they have done. He says the basilisks belong to the city. Borivik asks if the merchant was really behind all this. Suddenly, a man appeared behind Augustus. He asked which of these men was Boreas. He says that his head will do a great pirouette when he cuts it off with his sword. The man then saw the corpses of 3 basilisks and asked why his pets were now lying dead. August points to Masamune's group and says that they were the ones who killed his basilisks. The man looks around the group of people and points at the Toa, asking if she really was the one who finished off his basilisks. He then looks at Shira and says that her magic is also strong, and then suggests that they kill all the men first. As for the women, he says that he will first cut off their limbs and then drag them to the tavern to work off the death of his pets. August laughs and says that Boreas himself is to blame for everything because he should have accepted his offer. Boreas asks why the merchant needed his land. August spreads his arms and says that he wants to build a luxurious mansion. He will enjoy life watching the beautiful city, because that is what every merchant dreams of. Boreas Vik calls August a pathetic man, but the merchant replies that no one cares about the words of a weakling. He also says that he could have paid if Boreas had given him the land voluntarily, so there would have been no need to kill anyone if the man had not hired these adventurers. The man laughs and tells Boreas that it is all over, because he will die here. The man with the sword tells Augustus that the 2 of them are strong, so he will have to pay the warrior handsomely for this job. August says he never intended to cheat. He says he will pay twice as much if he kills them all, and if any of them survive, the man will be left without money. The mercenary asks who August thinks he is since his name is Gordon. The man comes up and asks who will be first, so he asks everyone to decide for themselves. Toa steps forward and says she will be the first. Gordon smiles and asks if the girl really wants to challenge him alone, so the second girl can join in as well. Shira steps forward and says that she will join in as well. Masamune asks what the 2 of them are doing now. Together they tell Mr. Masamune not to interfere in this fight and to stand behind them. The young man is surprised, and Gordon says that he does not like it. Gordon says he doesn't like it because he hates people like Masamune who hide behind women. He looks at him and wants to kill him first. Meanwhile, Toa and Shera had already attacked the man. However, he blocked their attack with his broadsword. The man said that the girls were very nimble because they apparently wanted to play with him so much. In an instant, he pushes them away with his lunge. Masamune realizes that he is very strong. The man attacks the Toa and says that he will play with them and be able to satisfy them. At that moment, Shira rushed at him, but Gordon was about to hit her with his knee in response. Shera quickly realized and covered herself with her hand. Gordon is surprised that she was able to repel this attack. He says that it is as expected from the king of the White Knights. The girl says that the man confused her with someone else, but he replied that Shera doesn't know how to lie. He doesn't yet understand which of the 2 it is, but if he plays a little longer, he will understand. He tells the story of Bori's farm, saying that the land once belonged to King Arnold, ruler of Rasthausen. He is a king after all, and he wouldn't send an ordinary adventurer here because his friend Boreas Vik is in trouble. Shira gets into a fighting stance and says that this is just a meaningless assumption. She attacks him, but the man dodges. Gordon clicks his tongue and tells the girl that she is not a good liar. He attacks her. Shira manages to crouch and then makes a multi-point lunge. But Gordon blocks them with his sword. He then says that he knew Shira was the king of the White Knights. Shira then shouts out Toa's name, and the girl uses her lightning spell right on Gordon. Shira jumps back and tells the girl she did a great job. August looks at the man. He holds on to his sword, all toasted, and then, with the roar of a true beast, activates his berserker ability. Shira notices the dark magic in the spell. Masamune understands that the girl is scared, and it can be assumed that Gordon used some kind of forbidden magic. Gordon says that the White King probably knows how dangerous this magic is. This was the first time he was beaten like that, but now it's all over. He transforms and says that he is now invincible. Masamune stands to the side and says that this form looks dangerous. Gordon starts yelling at Masamune to shut up and not to interfere because he will play with the girls first. Shira rushes forward, but Toa shouts at her to stop. But Shira does not listen to her and attacks the monster. But her rapier breaks on Gordon's armor. The man says he's very sorry and then punches the girl, causing her to fly into a tree and crash into him. He approaches her and says that apparently she does not understand what kind of magic this is. Now her physical and magical attacks are nothing to him. He swings his arm to hit the girl, but Toa appears from behind and uses lightning speed. Toei is light up with lightning. The man turns around, but the girl uses the thunderstorm sword and cuts Gordon in his berserker form. The man says that this is simply impossible, and Shira looks at all this in shock. A man falls to the ground with part of his body cut off. Toa offers his hand to Shira and asks if she is okay. Shira says that Toa saved her and then thanks her for always having their back. Suddenly, Gordon stands behind the girl. Nobody understands how he can still stand on his feet. Gordon repeats that he said he is invincible now. He uses true resurrection magic. The man uses the cursed Great Spear. Toa rushed to cover Shira, but in an instant Masamune appeared in front of the girls and used his spell. August looked around and tried to understand what had happened. Suddenly, Gordon's hand falls at his feet. Masamune asks if he really wants the same. Masamune asks Boreas what they should do with Augustus. The man immediately rushed to Boreas and began to beg him to let him go. He swears that he will not cause him any more problems. Boreas replied that this land had been passed down from generation to generation, and he would not give it to someone who acted only for his own selfish purposes. If August promises never to appear on this earth again, he will spare his life. August makes his promise and asks for forgiveness. After some time, Bori says that he has collected the materials. Shira thanks the man. Bori replies that he does not need gratitude because he did not do anything special. The man also says that, unfortunately, he will not be able to pay more than the amount stated in the order, but he can give something else. He gives them a bag and asks if they will take this in return. Bori says that the bag contains the meat of the steins that he grows, as well as other high-quality materials from the away steins. He asks to accept all of it. Bori apologizes and asks for forgiveness, but that is all he can offer. Masamune looks at the happy girls and tells the man not to worry, because this is a very good reward. Bori Vic says that they all protected this ranch today, so he will be forever grateful to them. He thanks them again from the bottom of his heart. Walking along the road, Shira asks Masamune if he has really mastered the sword, because when she taught him fencing, the young man could not do anything, but when it came to the basilisk, Masamune quickly defeated it. Masamune understands that he gained this ability after that day. However, he says that it is difficult to explain. Shira says that she believes the boy. She also says that the boy is clearly attracting trouble. Masamune apologizes for this. Then they plan to do some shopping in the city, so they go shopping. After some time, Masamune's group was at the local huge market. Masamune noticed Toa carrying a bag of meat. He pointed out that she was looking at the meat with a very hungry look. Toa replied that there was nothing like that, and that it was, on the contrary, Nimue who was acting strangely. Masamune asked her not to talk to him, because Nimue was fine. Toa said that Nimue was over there. Masamune approached the girl and asked if she liked anything. Nimue said that the necklaces were very beautiful. The merchant asks her if he liked the necklaces. The girl says she likes them. The man replies that the girl has a keen eye. These necklaces contain a crystal stone from Polstera. Masamune takes the necklace in his hands and examines it. The man says that the country of Polstera no longer exists, but they can buy these necklaces because they will not regret it. Shira says that the crystal stones from Polstera are very famous. It is initially blue, but over time it changes its color depending on the magical power of the owner. The merchant says that the frequency of the color depends on the quality of the owner's magical power. Each time he eagerly wants to see what color the stone will become. There are rumors among traders that with the help of this stone one can find a great magician. Masamune wonders if he should buy the necklace as a souvenir. He asks how much these necklaces cost. The merchant replies that one costs 3,000. So Masamune asks for 3. After some time, he puts one necklace on Nimu's neck. The girl thanks the young man. Masamune asks her not to lose the necklace. The girl replies that she will treasure it. Toa then approaches them and asks Masamune to put her necklace on her, too. The boy blushed but still put the necklace on the Toa. The girl lifts her face and thanks the boy. Suddenly, Masamune flushes and turns red. Shira also blushed and closed her eyes. Masamune, in a panic, offers to help Shira put on the necklace too. The girl says that she can do it herself. After some time, Masamune notices a sign for a liquor store. Shira says that it looks like a liquor store. They decide to go inside. Nimu squints at the strong smell of alcohol inside. The merchant greets the visitors and then asks if they are looking for anything in particular. Masamune replies that they are not. The man then points to the expensive drinks and says he recommends these particular ones. Masamune knows this will be a significant blow to his wallet. Suddenly, he notices a sign. The man says that the drink called Old Held is no longer available. Masamune asks if it is wine. The man, shocked, asks what. The young man does not know about this drink. Old Held is a brand that also bears the name of a ghost wine. It is no longer produced. Even the merchant does not know how many of these bottles are left in the world. Masamune realizes that he has seen this label and name somewhere before. Suddenly, he remembers the drink he found in the dungeon at the beginning of his journey. He takes out a bottle and asks if it is really Old Geld. The man grabs Masamune's hand and asks in horror if he can see. The boy is scared and agrees. The man examines the bottle very carefully with instruments. Towa asks and says if this is the same wine that Masamune drank and even let her try. The young man agrees. The man, after examining the bottle, says that it is clearly not a fake. The young man asks if he wants to try the wine. The man, shocked, asks if he really can. Then he pours some into a glass, swirls it around to oxygenate it, then smells it and tastes it a little. Suddenly it dawned on him, and he said that this drink really is Old Geld. The man says that as a child, he tried Old Held in his father's office and was very surprised. It was a long time ago, but he never forgot the taste. He looks at the bottle and says that without a doubt this is the real deal Old Held. The man asked Masamune where he got it. The boy replied that he got it in the dungeon. The man thought for a moment, then clenched his fist and asked if Masamune could give him the drink. The man says that of course he is not asking for it for free. He is willing to pay whatever he wants for it. Then he asks how about 10 million. Suddenly, Shira bursts into the conversation and asks if she heard correctly about 10 million. The man takes out his most expensive item and says that Masamune can have it too. He says that the young man can have everything that is in this store. Masamune asks the man to wait a little. Masamune says that's too much for one bottle. The man yells that it's not enough. He's been in the business for a long time, so he'll be straight with him. It was said that such wine no longer exists. Any connoisseur of alcohol would like to try it. It can be valued at 100 million, and aristocrats will give 1 billion. The young man realized that he had never suspected such an expensive drink. The man says that this is precisely why the young man can ask for whatever he wants for him. But 30 million is the limit for him now. Then, the man remembers that he has connections and will be able to sell wine directly to aristocrats, so he will be able to earn at least 1 billion. He says that he will give half of the proceeds to the young man. Masamune understands that this man really needs this wine, and he has about 100 more bottles in storage, and a lot of barrels too. You can tell from the seller that he is not lying, so nothing bad will happen. The young man says 30 million. If the man can pay this amount at once, then he will give this bottle right now. And of course, he will not refuse half after selling the bottle. The man couldn't believe his ears. He didn't think the boy would agree to sell this bottle. He asks to wait a second and then comes in with a bag. The man puts in the first 5 million and says he got it from the bank. Masamune realizes that there are banks in this world too. Then the man says he will bring more. He puts 30 million in front of him, and then, having received a bottle of the expensive drink, begins to cry with happiness. Shira is surprised when she looks at the money, and it turns out that Masamune had Old Geld. The young man asks the girl if she really knows about this drink too. The girl says that her father is the owner of the Budo vineyards. The merchantman asks Shera if they are descended from the Ekarot family. The girl says that she is the daughter of Brown Ekarot. As a child, she was often told that Old Geld was the best wine in the world. The man says that this is absolutely true. Then he tells Masamune that he will definitely return with the proceeds. He puts the bottle in the box and asks what the boy is going to do now. Masamune remembers that Shera's rapier broke. The girl says that she's ashamed of it. This rapier is given to every knight of the White King, so in other words, it was forged especially for her, so who knows how much she would have to pay for a new one. The boy offers to buy the girl a new weapon now. Shera says that she will not be able to repay the debt. The boy tells her not to worry, and then says that he will buy new clothes for Toa and Nemu. Toa asks about clothes, to which the boy replies that a girl can't wear the same outfit every day. The male shop assistant says that he knows a suitable store, so he tells them that he will take the boys there. Masamune thanks the man. Shera remembers Lord Masamune's sword and calls it very strange. The young man takes it out and says that it is called a snake blade, and that he also got it from a dungeon. The man asks to see the blade, and then tells Masamune not to use the word dungeon too lightly. The young man is interested in the reason for such a ban, to which the man replies that if he really got this blade from the dungeon, then everything is serious. This sword may be legendary or mythical, and in that case, the boy's life may be in danger. Masamune asks if weapons really have ranks. Shera says that all materials, weapons, borers, and monsters have ranks. Normal rank is the lowest, and the highest rank is fantastic. She also says, by the way, that there is no set standard for the value of items that are lower than normal rank, such as goblin teeth. The man asks to listen to him and then says that this sword needs to be taken for evaluation. He understood what rank this sword has, but they had better see for themselves to be sure. The weapon can be evaluated in the same store that he shows. He also says that Masamune will be able to decide for himself whether he will be safe if he keeps the sword. The young man thinks that this sword belonged to Sheon, so its rank cannot be low. He decides to take this opportunity to find out the rank of the sword. He then asks the man to lead them. After some time, they arrived at Cook's shop. The man said it was a general store run by the large Cook's company, but in fact, the store specialized in artifacts. Masamune's group entered the store and began to look at the various goods. The young man realized that there were a lot of things here, befitting a really large company. Nemu was delighted to see everything shining and then ran through the store. Toa asked her to stop and then ran after her. The man placed the sword on the counter and asked for an appraisal. He told Masamune that he would wait there for the results and that the boy could look around the area. Masamune said that he would go and look for Toa with Nemu, and Shera could look at a new rapier for herself at that moment. The girl asked if she could really do that. Masamune said that buying a new rapier would serve as a payment for the room so that he would get something in return and the girl would not feel so awkward. Shera thought for a bit and said that if that was the case, then she agreed to such conditions. After a while, Masamune saw Toa, who was looking at the armor. The girl said that she did not find anything special. She already had a sword, but the armor that was provided here was too heavy, and she wanted something lighter. The female consultant interrupts their conversation and says that perhaps this equipment would suit the girl. It is a light armor made from wyvern scales. The armor is of rare rank, so it is very durable. Masamune thinks that the rare rank is not very valuable, and he would like something better. Besides, this armor is not at all suitable for a Toa. The young man notices the curtain and asks what is there. The consultant says that there is a department of royal rank items there, and before they are allowed in, their solvency needs to be checked. The girl asks if they have enough finances. The young man shows the money and asks if 10 million is enough. The girl immediately apologizes and asks to follow her into this room. The young man understands from her reaction that the royal rank is not so expensive. Once inside, Masamune realizes that the atmosphere in this place is completely different. Toa asks the boy if he really wants to spend all 10 million. She says there is no need to spend so much, even if it is a royal rank. The young man says that the armor here should be of the highest quality. A doesn't know how much it should really cost, so he might not spend it all, so he suggests looking around first. The young man approaches the display case and calls out to Toa, asking what about these things. The consultant says that this is the Guardian's Hagoromo. It was created by a senior alchemist from cloth and materials of royal rank. It is very durable and elastic, and above all, lightweight. Toa asked the boy what he thought. He said it seemed appropriate. It would suit the girl much better than heavy armor. They decided to take the item. Masamune asks the price and is told the figure is 1.5 million. Toa asks the boy if he is sure. Masamune replies that there is no problem and they will buy it. The Toa are taken away to try on the armor, and Masamune notices Nimue, who is looking at the display cases. The girl says that there is so much stuff around that she can't choose. Masamune asks the consultant if they have a reservation for a child. He is shown a mithril shirt and told that it can be worn under other armor. This item is the work of an elven master seamstress, so it is expensive, 2 million. It has been enhanced with magic and changes size to suit its owner. The young man asks what rank this thing has. He is told that the t-shirt has a royal rank. Masamune tells Nemu that the shirt can be worn under her clothes and will protect her. The girl says that the armor is very expensive. Masamune replies that it is a small price to pay to protect Nemu. The girl screamed that she understood and then happily thanked the boy. Masamune told her to change her clothes and try on the t-shirt. Then Toa came out to Masamune with a new thing. The young man was amazed by its beauty. The girl asked the young man's opinion. The young man, embarrassed, said that this outfit suited Toa very well. He asked where she got the new clothes, to which the girl replied that the consultant had picked out the new clothes and said that they suited her very well. Then Nimue came out to Masamune and said that she had changed her clothes. The girl was wearing a different sweater. Masamune asked where she got these clothes from, to which the girl replied that the consultant had picked them out for her. Nimue noted that the hood had a compartment for the ears. Then a man came out and said that they were made specifically for the girl's appearance, so she could hear perfectly well even with the hood on. Masamune noted the unusual service. Meanwhile, Shira was looking at a beautiful rapier with a snowflake next to the hilt. Masamune suddenly came up to her and asked if Shira liked the rapier. The girl said that she didn't like her at all, to which the young man thought that it was very easy to understand what was on this girl's mind. The consultant said that this rapier, made from unicorn horn, was from the mountains of Arda. The young man inquired about these mountains. The girl said that the Arda Mountains are a mountain range in Modern, 10,000 meters high. Modern is a cold land where snow has been lying for hundreds of years. Most monsters don't even go there because of the cold. It is said that unicorns live in these mountains. The body of this unicorn accumulates the magical power of ice, and the horn has the largest accumulation. Unicorns living in such harsh conditions are of high rank, so it is obvious that the rank of materials from them is also high. Masamune asks if they are really hunted in the mountains. The girl replies that unicorns occasionally come down to the foothills. As she said before, the rapier is made from a unicorn's horn, so the blade of the rapier also has the magical power of ice. Of course, this rapier was forged by the best blacksmiths, so its price is 5 million. This figure made Shira sweat on her face. Masamune asked Shira if the girl used ice magic. If so, this rapier would suit her perfectly. The girl agreed but said that this weapon was too expensive. She was not yet an experienced knight, so it was worth looking for something cheaper. Masamune then asks if he should buy it for himself. Shira says that it is obviously the finest rapier. The shine of the blade, the design of the guard and the handle, everything about it is beautiful. In addition, it contains ice magic, so it is an ideal weapon. After listening to her, he says that he will take her to Shira, and then gives 5 million to the consultant. The girl screamed and said that she shouldn't do that because she didn't deserve such an expensive gift. The young man smiles and says that it is too late to dissuade him because he has already bought the rapier. Then he gives it to the girl. The girl hubs the blade and thanks Masamune, saying that from now on it will be her most precious blade. After some time, the man from the wine shop gives the snake blade to Masamune. The boy asks how the appraisal went. The man says that he was told that they could not determine the value of the sword. Shira suggested that in that case the blade was legendary rank. The man replied that this was impossible because the seller had said that they could determine the legendary rank. This means that the blade is of approximately mythical rank. Shira said that this was the first time she had seen such a thing. The man replied that he had seen it too. Masamune asks if this blade is really a great rarity. The man replies that, firstly, no one has seen things of mythical rank and above for a long time. Without exaggeration, it was believed that they did not exist at all. However, they do exist in the ranking system. The existence of equipment of this rank is only a theory, like with immortal rank monsters. The seller claimed to have measured it successfully, but he can't determine the rank of an item above legendary, so don't trust his words. Masamune thinks that if this blade was previously owned by Shaun, he would have expected the rank to be high, but still not that high. The young man remembered Shaun's words when he said that the young man should give this snake sword to the demoness girl, because it was special, and it might not suit the young man. He tells Toea to listen to her, and asks if she would mind fighting with the sword. The girl takes it and says that it is very valuable and perhaps it would be better to keep it for herself. Masamune says that this sword clearly does not suit him. He tells her to judge for herself. He, as a healer, cannot use this sword, so it is better suited for the Toa. The girl examines the blade and says that they will exchange swords. The man says that the boy is very strange because he just gives away valuable things to other people. Masamune says that he has no use for this treasure. The man sighs and says that either the boy is too generous or too stupid, and Masamune replies that he is an ordinary person. He thinks that maybe he has changed a little, because before he was alone, but now he has met girls, so he is grateful to them from the bottom of his heart. At this time, a huge portrait of Albert Morlo hung in front of the public, and in front of it stood the king. He said that Albert Morlo was their friend, sometimes with wisdom, sometimes with strength. He helped them in their kingdom for a long time. For Greybook, the death of such a mage is simply an irreparable loss. The king says that they can no longer repay him. So what they are about to say in memory of their friend is very important. They were going to keep it a secret from everyone at first. He says that everyone present is grieving with them, and everyone is suffering. And if so, then everyone has the right to know the truth. The truth is that Albert Morlo died at the hands of the Dragonheart. This organization challenged the entire kingdom. The king shouts that they swear to all the subjects of the kingdom that all these scoundrels from the organization will face a painful death, because this is the only way they will repay the debt of friendship. At this time, in the National Academy of the Kingdom named Ares, on the #1 training ground, there was a girl. She relayed the terrible news to Masamune's classmates that Mr. Albert had died. She said that the Dragonheart organization, criminals who attack politicians and aristocrats, appeared near the borders of the kingdom yesterday. Albert immediately rushed there, but unfortunately did not succeed in the battle. She said that she wanted to convey Albert's dying news to the young men and women, since that was what she had come here with. But it seemed that all she had achieved was to undermine the teenager's spirits. One of Masamune's classmates, who used to bully him, said that Mr. Albert taught them all magic, and was also kind even when they failed. He was a good teacher, so they are all sincerely grateful to him, so they all asked to convey his last will. The girl thanks them and says that she is sure that Albert would be proud of the guys. She then talks about how they must defeat the Demon King and bring peace to these lands, being the main motto of Greyborg. It is also Albert's last testament. She says that the young men and women are the hope of Albert and the entire kingdom. So, she asks to lend them her powers. After some time, Saki approaches a young man named Ichijo and calls out to the young man. He asked if Ichijo really didn't listen to what Ares was saying. They are all trying to do good for the country and training, so Ichijo should not shirk his duties. The young man says that he listened to everything, but now is his free time, so he spends it the way he likes, because rest is also important. He looks at Saki and says that he always snaps at him for every little thing, so he thought that Hidaka probably felt something similar too. Seichi started shouting, telling Ichijo to stop telling him something about that dead man. The young man replied that the woman had also come to tell them about the dead man. Seki asked Ichijo what he meant by the dead man. Was he talking about Ares? Ichijo asked who he was talking about then. Seki is a bully and a rude person, but he is a simpleton at heart, so he doesn't notice. The young man asks what Ichijo is talking about. He clarifies that he is talking about that woman. Most likely, there is something fishy about her last speech as well. Seki grabs his classmate by the collar and asks him what grounds he has for saying that. The young man asks a counter question and asks why Seki is so fiercely protective of this woman. He asks how they all reacted to her story about the old man's death. It is obvious to the naked eye that everyone became even more inspired, although in fact a man died and was killed. It wasn't just anyone who was killed, but a great sage who had served the kingdom for decades. So it would be more logical to be sad. He removes Seki's hand and asks if it was strange. Whenever Ares comes, he always starts with the dark news that the situation in the kingdom is dire, or that the people are dying at the hands of demons. Before she leaves, she always says something nice, like how much she believes in the boys. Most of the boys immediately rush to train with special zeal, but it did not have such an effect on the girls. Then the old man began to come with his carefree laughter. Now that he's dead, Ares comes and tells them all to carry out his last will. It feels like everything is going according to that woman's script. Ichijo says that it's all just brainwashing. Suddenly a man approaches them and asks what is going on. Seiki replies that nothing happened and they were just discussing their future. Seichi says that they must train even harder for the good of the kingdom. The man pats him on the shoulder and says that he is counting on him. After the teacher left, Ichijo continued, saying that the current Seichi just makes him sick, because even before he wasn't that bad. The boy tells Ichijo to think what he wants, but he won't report him. The thing is, Ichijo is very powerful, and therefore important to the kingdom. Ichijo notes Saki's remarkable devotion to this place. Then they were interrupted by the girls who were standing nearby and heard everything. One of them shouted at the boys to stop, as everyone was fed up with Ichijo's nagging. Another girl says that Ichijo was cool once, but now he just sucks. Ichijo smiled and said that girls, as far as he could see, never change. They can't see beyond their noses. The girl started throwing hysterics when Ichijo cast the explosion spell. Suddenly, something exploded above the girls. Ichijo looked menacingly and told them that they were like leeches. They always latch onto someone and don't let go. If he wasn't good enough, they would latch onto Seichi. He asked who they would latch onto after Seichi. He says that when they hide behind someone's back, no matter what they say, they may not be held accountable for their words. If Hidaka had been in charge of his revenge, they would have probably laughed at him until they got tired of it themselves. Seiki asks if Ichijo is ashamed of using magic to intimidate. He asks the boy if he is a coward. Ichijo replies that of course, he shouldn't talk about bullying. Saki can't take it anymore and grabs Ichijo by the collar, then tells him to think about it carefully. Who is really in the wrong? After a while, Ichijo was left alone. He sat near the tree and wondered if they'd all forgotten something. When Hidaka was banished, everyone had to see Ares' true face. She laughed heartily with that horrible face as she doomed him. She just couldn't be a good person. He believes that they are, after all, just pawns for these people. If they are deemed useless, they will simply be thrown out like Hidaka. But it is quite possible that they will simply be killed. Ichijo does not understand why no one notices this. Masamune's face and asks if maybe he is still alive somewhere out there. After some time, Masamune and the girls arrived in Radhausen. They immediately went to Sharon's shop and gave her the materials from the basilisk's bodies. The woman was surprised that they had managed to catch 3 basilisks, because one is very difficult to handle, and here there were 3. The woman turned to him and asked if something had happened to her, but the girl replied that she was perfectly fine. The girl remembered Masamune's words. The young man asked her not to tell anyone that he had killed the basilisks. The girl understood that Sharon couldn't be told either, so she shouted that Nimue was keeping a secret. Masamune decided to change the subject and asked what the woman would do with the ingredients from the basilisk. The woman replied that she would make a secret potion. She asked them to wait a little. After a while, the woman came out with a potion. Masamune wonders what they will use it for. The woman says, isn't it obvious that she's using the potion to erase Nemu's slave mark? Masamune asks if it can really be erased. The woman says, of course. However, since the secret potion is usually used for other things, few people know about this effect. She tells Nimue to listen to her carefully, and then says that the medicine is a little painful, but he will definitely have to be patient. The girl says that she can handle it. Sharon then tells Masamune that he should prepare to use healing magic in the meantime. At her signal, he must cast healing on the wound. She does not count on it, but the young man must cast his spell at full strength. Masamune shudders and says that he understands everything. The woman drips some onto the girl's hand, and she starts screaming in pain. Sharon says it won't last long, so the girl should be patient. She starts pouring the potion onto the girl's hand, and then yells at Masamune that it's his turn to cast healing magic. The boy used healing and the burn on his hand disappeared. The girl was exhausted, so Masamune used effects removal magic. He then leans over to her and asks if she is okay. The girl says that she is okay. The girl says that she has no pain or dizziness, so she is fine. They look at her elbow and see that it is completely worn away. Shira says that this is amazing because the secret potion is from basilisk fangs. All she knew was that it strengthens the body. Sharon says that it is usually used as a tonic, but if you mix it with a little more poison, you can achieve this effect. The poison corrodes the skin and causes severe pain. Also, if you mix it with the wrong amount, the skin can turn to stone. So you have to be very careful, just to be on the safe side. If something goes wrong, she needs to cast a healing spell. And for extra insurance, she added an ingredient that neutralizes petrification. Masamune sees Nimu's very soft skin. Sharon turns to Masamune and says that he seems to be very calm. She has never seen healing magic work so quickly before, not to mention that the boy was able to use the effect removal spell. She didn't even know that the spell could remove fatigue. You wouldn't think that Masamune could do that from his appearance. Shara says that this is also the first time she sees this. It turns out that the young man has not only learned how to assign an attribute. The young man asked if it is not normal for a healer to be able to do this. Sharon says that it is unheard of for a healer to be able to use so many spells. Most healers can only use the healing spell that is available from the start, although even it is far from being as effective as the similar spell of the priests. Even more experienced healers only have a relative command of assigning the attribute, and even this is already a great rarity. If a healer tries to learn new spells, he will only become a target for ridicule. Even if he gives it his all, at best he will master healing and attribute assignment. That's why everyone thinks and calls healers the weakest class. Masamune remembers Ares' face when she said those words. Sharon says that Masamune seems to be different. She asks if he knows any other spells. The boy says that, in principle, he can increase the attack and defense of allies. Sharon and Shara are very surprised by this. The girl asks if the spell Masamune is talking about is really called the Aura of Hatred. The young man gives a positive answer. Sharon says that this magic is of a high level. She has never even heard of such healers. The young man asks what it is. Even though it is not an attack magic, it is still of a high level. Sharon replies that the enhancement from this spell is on a completely different level. Also, since there are few people who can use it, the value of this magic is higher. Masamune smiles and thinks that, of course, he still has the weakest class, but with high-level magic, it seems like his heart has become lighter. After some time, the girl register at the Adventurers Guild announced that the successful completion of the mission to neutralize the basilisk was credited. She says that she also has the honor to announce that Mr. Nito has been promoted to B rank. She asks for her congratulations. The girl then says that Ms. Tuts Hortica has been promoted to S rank. Masamune asks her to wait and says that there must be some kind of mistake. He asks how he can get a B rank when just a few days ago he was an F rank, and a C rank, Toa too. The girl says that there can be no mistake, because that was the decision of the guild leader. Masamune turns to Shara and asks if they really promote like that here. The girl says that it usually takes at least a year to even move up to the next rank. In most cases, even several years. The higher the rank, the more difficult it becomes to obtain. Masamune thinks that it would take at least 4 years to go from F rank to B rank, and he hasn't even been here for a month yet. Shira says she herself does not have full information, but if Masamune wants, she can contact the guild leader. The young man refuses and says that everything is fine. Then the registrar girl turns to Shara and says that a reward has been prepared, which she did not have time to receive earlier. She is asked to familiarize herself with it and sign in the right place. Masamune realized that they were talking about the reward for Nut Klein. He even suggests that his promotion might also be related to this story. No other options come to his mind. However, he remembers that he registered in the guild as Nito, and Reinhardt should know him by the name Masamune. But on the other hand, Hilda knows that Nito is Masamune. The young man realizes that he's in trouble. It seems that now at least the guild and the White Royal Knights know that Nito and Masamune are the same person. If this continues, the pseudonym will soon have no meaning at all. Suddenly, the young man's thoughts are interrupted by a man. Masamune turns around and sees a familiar man shouting that the boy is taking missions here again. He asks if he really hasn't realized his uselessness yet. Annette just contacted her and told her that the girl was being called to headquarters. The young man said that Shira can go because everything will be fine here. They say goodbye to each other. The man starts screaming at being ignored again. He claims that he will not tolerate ridicule from trash who is only good for beating goblins. Nemu interrupts him and says that the man is evil and orders him to leave his master alone. The man asks who this little girl is, and then tells the young man that he is with a different girl every time. He even says that he probably does all sorts of things with her and is not squeamish. The man apologizes to her and says he has business with this healer. Suddenly, Nemu gets furious and jumps up and uses the cat food skill, hitting the man. He flies to the other side of the guild. Nemu says that he is a mean guy who bullies his master, so let him taste the cat's fist. The witnesses named the man Yogi and said that he did not know how to drink at all. Masamune realized that this blow was the very same cat fist that Nemu had spoken of. It was just as Sharon had said. Nemu was much stronger than any healer. Masamune asks why Nemu didn't use her cat fist when she was captured by the drug dealers. The girl replies that she was not in control of herself at the time. Toa says that she was probably given Matatabi or something similar to inhale. She also says that they had a cat-like maid in the castle, and Toa heard that Matatabi makes them drunk. True, as they grow older, the effect becomes weaker, and there are special trainings that allow them to cope better with the smell. Masamune asks if Nemu has had such training. The girl replies that she doesn't know. At this time, in the castle of Radhasen, Shura stood at the huge door and apologized for the intrusion. In front of her was the assembly hall of the White Royal Knights. Shira apologizes for being late. 7th rank girl, Shira Ekarat of the White Royal Knights has entered. The girl who answered her was the 6th rank girl, Emily Anderson. She told the girl not to worry because they knew that Shira might be late, so they just got ready. White Royal Knights rank 5, Edward Scotch, replied that he was grateful for the hard work. White Royal Knights rank 4. Reed Black was also in the room. The man said that Shira probably went on the mission with that boy. A 3rd rank member of the White Royal Knights, Hilda Carrot, asked Shira how her mission went and whether she had become friends with that white cat girl. White Royal Knights 2nd rank member Daniel King said that everyone present should be quiet as they were preventing Reinhardt from speaking. Reinhardt said that it seemed that everyone was fully assembled. Edward Scotch interrupts him and says that before moving on to the main topic, he would like to ask a question. Why not tell Shira directly that they are going to organize surveillance of the boy? It would be wrong to hide it. Shira is surprised. Daniel King says that this decision was made by His Majesty. And to check Masamune's motives, he was sent to Vic with Shira first. Commander of the White Royal Knights of the 1st rank, Reinhard Rickman, says that the king knew from the beginning what was going on there, and that's why he gave Shira this task. But that's not why today's meeting is happening. He says that the Dragonheart has appeared in Greyberg. Hilda asks Shira what's wrong with her, but the girl says that everything is fine. She, as a white knight, probably should have said that they invited Masamune. But the girl didn't know how they would react to it. Reinhard says he will continue, and announces the main topic of the meeting, saying that there, in Greyberg, a forbidden ritual of summoning heroes was carried out. Everyone in the room was shocked by this news, and no one could believe their ears. Suddenly, Reed Black laughed very loudly and said that everyone in Greyberg had gone mad. It turns out that the Dragonheart came to Greyberg for precisely this reason. Reinhardt says that is most likely. He says there are already victims, the Forest Mage, Albert Marlowe. They say the funeral ceremony has already taken place. Edward said he had heard of this mage. During the war, his ability to control vast territories with magic had instilled real fear in his enemies. Reed says that if we remember the case with the Kingdom of Torrent, then calming down after killing this one mage would not be in the style of Dragonheart. Suddenly, Shira gets up and asks for forgiveness, then asks about the summoning of heroes. Reed is surprised that the girl doesn't even know about it. However, he says that it is natural because it is not something that is usually talked about. Summoning heroes is a type of summoning magic, but it is very different from the normal magic that Shira knows. The essence of the summoning of heroes is very simple. Heroes from another world are summoned. Shira inquires about heroes, asking if they are called characters from fairy tales. Reed answers that this is not a mistake, but not entirely correct judgment. Heroes is just a term for those who have been summoned, although it is said that in the past, so-called mad monsters were also summoned. Within the summoned is a divine protection called a blessing. There are unusually high initial stats or the ability to use high-level magic from the start. It is also said that these heroes have rare classes and special skills. Shira asks why this magic is forbidden. Reinhardt replies that it is because the summoners sacrifice people. This ritual requires a huge expenditure of mana. In short, a mana core is formed. Shira says that the mana core can live in the bodies of other beings, so why sacrifice other people? Reinhardt says that Reed mentioned this before. The monster summoning incident. A beast man was sacrificed then. However, the summoned one was insane and did not understand what was being said to him. The ritual ended in a bloody tragedy. Since then, the floor has been used only for human sacrifices. Reed says that this magic is terrible for another reason. Shira asks what he means. The man says that creating a mana core sounds very simple, but that much mana cannot be gathered by simply making sacrifices. The core has a limitation. It cannot provide mana flow until the victim's body is destroyed. Shira suggests that this limitation must be removed, but asks how this is possible. Reed says it's possible through desperation and terror. He asks her if she knows the easiest way to achieve both of these things. The girl says through torture, and Reed replies that she is smart. To cripple the victims with continuous pain and horror, to the very limit, but not to kill. Because if the victim dies, then the core will die too. And finally, when the spirit is completely broken, the restriction on the core will be removed, and the bodies of the subjects will give it their mana with a bright glow. Only after all this has been done can the ritual of summoning the heroes begin. Shira asks how many must be sacrificed, but Reed shrugs and says there is no answer. He assumes that the number could reach hundreds of people, or even 1,000. When this ritual was performed last time, there were even rumors that people were disappearing in the country. Shira shrank back. Noticing this, Reinhardt says that what has been done cannot be undone. But even if we assume that the dragon heart leaves Greyberg alone, the kingdom will sooner or later go to war against the demons. He asks everyone present to keep this in mind. Shira understands that magic that requires human sacrifice is very frightening, and she didn't even think that such a thing existed. Reinhardt, meanwhile, said that he had everything, and then asked if anyone had anything they wanted to report. Daniel said that he had something, and it concerned the recently liquidated Nut Klein. Someone had stolen his body yesterday. Shira didn't listen to them. He was only concerned that she still didn't know anything about magic. After some time, everyone gathered at Shira's house to cook a barbecue. The girl's father was collecting firewood for the fire, and was happy that they had not spent such a long time together. The man said that when Shira and Hilda were little, they often grilled meat, so this brings back memories for him. Masamune laid out pieces of meat from the bag and said that there was so much meat here that it would be enough for all the servants, so everyone could enjoy it. The man thanked the young man, because after all, there were about 15 maids in the estate. The young man replied that there should be enough meat. He pointed to the table, where there was some Stein meat that they had received as a thank you for one of the missions, and the pile of meat that lay on the side was something they had bought separately. Masamune asked the man not to refuse, because it would be like their gratitude for all the work. The man thanked the young man, and then ordered the maid to call everyone to the table. Then the young man took out 5 bottles of alcohol and another barrel. He told the man to take this wine, because he had more. The man chuckled and said that he himself owned a large vineyard, so he had a lot of strong drinks of different types. He takes a bottle of wine and screams in horror that he is holding Old Held in his hands. Suddenly Nemu appears and says that Shira and Hilda have arrived. After a while, everyone was enjoying the meat and expensive wine. Even the cook cried because he was tasting Old Held in his life. Masamune watches everyone and is happy about it. Then Toa comes to him and says that it is very good when everyone is happy. Then the girl asks something about Shira and says that she is clearly not okay. He looks at the girl sitting alone and says that he himself sees it perfectly well. Soon he approaches her and asks permission to sit down next to her. He sits down and asks what happened to the girl. Shira asks Masamune if he has ever heard of summoning heroes. The boy is surprised, and then answers that he has heard of such a thing. The girl asks if the boy really knows the reason why this ritual is considered forbidden. Masamune replies that he knows about human sacrifices. The girl asks why he is so calm. Today she heard for the first time about the ritual and the sacrifices and torture that accompanied it. Masamune is surprised by this and asks what kind of torture this is. After some time, Shira tells him the whole truth about the ritual and says that she had no idea that such magic existed. However, she thinks that as a royal white knight, she should have been prepared to face the truth that she would rather ignore. but now magic scares her a little. The boy asks if this isn't normal. Not all magic involves sacrifice. He doesn't think Shara should worry about that. There will always be good people and bad people. There will always be protective magic and forbidden magic. He thinks it all depends on the person using the magic. And if the girl still finds it hard, he will always listen to her, just like now. He also says that Shara has Toa, Nimue, and Hilda, so Shara should talk until she feels better and the boy will be there. The girl can't resist and hugs the young man. She asks to call her simply Shara and not to use any more formalities because they are close friends, so the girl asks permission to call the young man simply Masamune. Masamune sees Shara saddened and agrees to her proposal. Suddenly, someone shouts at him from the side and says that this is not fair, and then runs screaming straight to Shara and Masamune, asking what the girl is doing with her master. The girl looks at Shara with disdain and says that she is being dishonest because she was the only one who hugged Masamune. Shara screams and says that no one is clinging to anyone. Nemu says that they were just hugging, and Nemu saw everything. Suddenly, Toa approaches them and says that it seems that Shara has already recovered. The girl apologizes for making everyone worry. Masamune explains to Nimue that Shara needed to talk, so she didn't do anything weird. Nimue says that they agreed to switch to informal communication. After some time, the Toa were told about the summoning of heroes. The girl was surprised that such magic actually exists. Masamune asked if she really didn't know about it. Toa replied that it was the first time she heard about it. Masamune then says that it was about the ritual to summon heroes. Shira says that she thinks that everyone will find out about it soon anyway. It seems that the Kingdom of Greyberg performed this forbidden ritual. Shira sees Masamune's reaction and says that he really knew about Greyberg. She also says that he was never surprised the whole time and that he probably knew something for sure. The young man says he learned this from Dragonheart. They told him when they left that they were going to investigate the summoning of heroes in Greyberg. Shira asks if that's really all it is. The young man understands that the girl may have noticed everything. There are many cases that are difficult to explain. Apparently, so much is accumulated that it will no longer be possible to get out of it. Masamune says he'll tell them everything. About these summoned heroes, he admits that he is one of them. A pause of silence surrounds everyone. The young man realizes that this is not the reaction he expected. He then says in a rush that he was summoned from another world. The Toa thinks about it. Cher rubs her chin and says that she doesn't know how to react to this. At least that explains all the things that happened to Masamune. She explains that the young man did not know much about this world, and most importantly, that for the healer class, Masamune's strength is completely atypical. Reed Black speaks of the blessing that heroes are given. Masamune interrupts them and asks to let him clarify something. He was called here as a hero, but he is not a hero at all. Shira asks in what sense the young man says this. He says with a blank face that he was thrown out because he is a healer, but he thinks it is for the best, because he was able to meet all of them. Nimue asks if it is good that the master met Nimue, to which the youth replies that he is sure it is very good. Shira asks everyone to stop and asks what it means that there are others summoned besides him. The young man replies that it is so. If the kingdom kicked out Masamune, then are the other guys even stronger? Masamune replies that he heard that everyone has elite classes, so they must be strong. Shira is surprised by this. Toa interrupts them and says that they cannot be stronger than Masamune. Shira asks why. The young man remembers something and says that Shara and Nimue did not see his real status. A activates his status panel, and Shiru and Nimue are simply surprised that the boy has a triple-digit level. The girl realizes that it is really hard to believe that someone could be even stronger. She asks if Nito's alias might also be related to the summoning. Masamune answers yes. The young man says he uses his pseudonym because he doesn't want other conscripts to know he survived.